Me on that. And the Jim Christie is here. The gorgeous Tammy Jackson has arrived, people. Make sure you give her a wave. She likes a good wave. Murray F., how are you? Papa Craig, good to have you back. And we're about 40 seconds away. Remember, a great way to support this show, everyone, is by hitting that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. When you hit subscribe, by the way, ring the bell. And the super chat is open as well, so make sure you check that on out as well. If that's the way you want to go, that would be wonderful. All right. Jason McLean, he's our guest. He's the guy with the beautiful beard, and we'll be getting going here. Hey, Olin. Hi, Gorgeous Shar. Hey, Clint Walk. Welcome to our channel. And let's do this thing. 5 seconds, shall we? Let's rock and roll. Here we go. Oh, I lied. We're on in like 20 seconds. Murray F., thank you for that super chat, man. Appreciate that. And Brian Bowden, by the way, he is podcasting this show tonight, and this is show number 1887 for him. So we appreciate that, buddy. Amy Vegas, oh, nice to see you. You're looking lovely tonight. 3 seconds. Now we're going. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Oh, we have a good one for you, ladies and gentlemen. Jason McLean is an artist and biblical paranormal researcher based out of Waxahachie, Texas. I hope I got that right. We'll find out in a moment. Beyond his lifelong love of art and comics, Jason's life has been consumed with the study of archaeology, cryptozoology, ufology, astronomy, and wondering what the heck us Canadians do above the border anyways. But it also ties in to help him better understand the Bible, its teachings, and the one behind its creation. Are UFOs, aliens, cryptozoological animals, and other paranormal activity evidence that the work of Christianity? Or is there something that we haven't learned yet, one of God's little secrets that we're not supposed to know? Then at the bottom of hour number 3, we're going to get to the Magic 8 Ball. Then we're going to go into the Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Let's get this thing going. Jason McLean, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited for this. And so what do you do north of the border? I mean, outside of red, green, and maple syrup, I just don't know about anything going on in Canada.
Well, you know, I chase Bigfoot. I chase UFOs. You know, I go looking for ghosts. I sometimes shower, like every now and again you have to.
Right. Yeah, every once in a while. I mean, once a month should be good.
Well, exactly. I mean, you don't want to waste too much of that fresh water. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. No, I'm really excited to be. So go ahead. Where do we want to start?
Well, let's start with you, because I always like to introduce our audience to our guest tonight. You're brand new here, so not many of us may know a little bit about you and your gorgeous beard that you are carrying right now. So for us getting to know you, how did you get into this entire field? What piqued your interest?
So if you'd asked me this even a few years ago, I wouldn't have said this, but I think it really did. So actually, I record my account in my book. But when I was 11, I was fishing with a friend of mine in a local creek. All of Texas basically sits on this slab of limestone, right? So a lot of the creeks actually cut deep into that limestone. And it can be kind of hard to get in, except for a few places where the walls collapsed, right? So it creates a bank, and you can fish from there. He had packed up. He was heading into. He was heading back, on the other side, when I heard a noise, a call. It was clearly an animal. I'd never heard it before. And so I poke out my head from behind the tree line because I was already starting to leave. And I see what at first I think is the largest blue heron I've ever seen in my life. 8 to 10 foot wingspan. And I was like, wow, it's pretty cool. And so I'm waiting for it. And just as it flies right here in front of my face, its right wingtip was literally less than 5 feet from me. I realize it's not a heron. It doesn't have feathers. And what I thought had been the legs sticking out from behind it, when they fly, they'll usually do that. It was actually a tail with a diamond-shaped flange on the end. And I watched it continue to fly down the creek because I was in a bit of a straightaway, and then it just banked and disappeared. And I realized that what I had seen was, I didn't even know the name Rhamphorhactoid pterodactyl, but I could tell that it was a pterosaur. I was a bit of a dinosaur geek. But again, I love the pteranodon. This was not something I was necessarily a fan of. I didn't even know the name of it until a little bit later. But I kept my mouth shut because I couldn't have I told myself I couldn't have seen what I actually saw. And I tried to make myself think that I had seen just a really, really big blue heron and I must have misseen it. It wasn't until later that I found out that I was not the only one in North Texas and southern Oklahoma that had been seeing these creatures, and they were all described, and everyone, all these unrelated people, were seeing them and describing them the same way I had described and saw what I had seen. They tend to look like sort of herons when they fly. They do that S-curve shaped thing with their neck, right? They're not too large. They're 8 to 10 wingspan. 8 to 10 foot wingspan is big, but not so big that it stands out. And they tend to look like cranes or herons or pelicans when they fly. And what I found is that most people think that's what they are at first, and then they recognize that it's not if they get a closer look at them. And long story short, I'm here. I had to grow a beard to be in this industry, though, clearly.
But you also grew up a very religious man.
Yeah, I'm the son of a mechanic. My father always said that, I could believe whatever, I could believe or not believe anything I wanted, but I had to tell him why. So there was no end of books that he was in, lectures and places I was willing to go, and that he was willing to take me to. He's like, look, again, it's not his line. He stole it from somebody else, but it's the idea that God does not have grandchildren. It's like at some point you're going to have to make your mind up to this. It's like you can't just agree with me. That's not how this works. You have to make your mind up. It's like if you want to be a Buddhist, be a Buddhist. You want to be a Muslim, be a Muslim. You want to be an atheist, be an atheist. But you got to tell me why. So the thing is, the more I've looked, the more I've dug, the more I have found that the biblical worldview is more accurate to what we actually experience and see on a daily basis rather than any other explanation. Now, it doesn't mean that how we've always interpreted the Bible is correct, right? I think that's a big problem is we try to reinterpret Scripture through modern lenses and modern eyes, but instead of trying to read it from the way it was meant to be read. However, my point is the broad worldview that it presents, I think, more accurately describes what we see in the world around us.
So for you, if I get your research correct, Jason, you're someone who is trying to almost bridge the gap between Christianity and the crypto world and all these beautiful mysteries that we seem to be unknown or unaware of or scared of.
Yes. Well, it's less trying to build a bridge between them because I don't think there needs to be. They're already on top of each other. Hey, Rob. He's a fellow co-host on Trinity Paracryptid Network. Good guy. In fact, I think he was on your show just a little while ago.
He's coming up here. Bigfoot
Oh, he's
Rob,
coming
that
up?
is. Yes,
Yeah.
we love him around here. He's a good dude, man. Good
Yes,
dude.
he is. Yes, he is. But yeah, I don't think there necessarily needs to be a bridge. It's sort of the old argument that it's religion versus science, and the problem is there is no real conflict. It's really the conflict tends to be between two different religious viewpoints, right? It isn't science; it's the interpretation. What is often in the same thing with the paranormal world. It isn't that there's a conflict. We have to build a bridge. What we have are conflict of ideas. All I'm saying is, let's look at all your options, right? Let's actually look at everything, because what we tend to do is there's UFOs and that's all I'm going to look at. There's Bigfoot and that's all I'm going to look at. There's paranormal and that's all I'm going to look at, right? I'm saying let's look at all of it and let's see what does it say? What do these things imply? And the biblical worldview accounts for all of them, and even it predicts certain aspects of them from 4,000 years ago. You can kind of see where it all sort of fits together. Plus, when you do that, you start to notice there's unusual overlaps between phenomena, right? For example, cryptozoology is full of critters that are clearly just living, breathing, material creatures, right? But then there's stuff that does seem to be more paranormal. In the paranormal world, we see all kinds of phenomena that people like to call poltergeists, we call them shadow people, and yet they also show up in ufology far too often. There's these weird overlaps where you wouldn't quite expect them to be, but it makes sense from that larger biblical worldview.
Now, I would say that you're almost in the minority of Christians who want to even touch these subjects. I know in my area, my best friend, he's very Christian. Mm-hmm. However, he's like, Dave, I don't mind if you're going to look for aliens. I have no problem. If you're out in the forest looking for Bigfoot, I'll even come with you because it's a good ATV ride. He goes, but I really get scared when you go chasing the ghosts. He goes, because we just don't know what that stuff is and what it's all about. But for him, one of the reasons why he just left his current church was because of a lot of the narrow-mindedness and the thinking that goes along with that. And look, this isn't a show about bashing church or bashing the belief or the religion, because I think for a lot of people, who believe in God, they've been able to separate God from the religious side. Religion, in my interpretation, is very man-made. And it all depends who your preacher is to decide what message you are going to get and which one he's going to focus on. Comparatively, the way I believe in God is that we're talking about an all-knowing, all-loving being that basically is a creator of all. But not to make this a religious show, because that's not what we're all about. But there is this great debate about what you are doing and people like you are doing. Why do you do it then?
Because honestly, there are too few of us doing it. I grew up the son of a mechanic. My father believed everything can be broken, every problem can be solved, and every question should be asked and answered. If I were to live in a world, and we all have worldviews, right? Like, let's say, for example, that we believed gravity didn't work at 32 feet per second, and that gravity was more dependent on say, the weight of an object than air. Well, you can perform experiments that shows that you're wrong, right? And your worldview then, therefore, is wrong. If you believe that the world is one way, and then there are phenomena that are observed by people, that are seen, there's physical evidence of it, and your worldview can't account for them, then your worldview is wrong. Straight up. That's just the way it is. We either want to learn about the way reality is, we want to learn the shape of the world, to coin an old phrase, or we don't. I believe God is truth. That means all truth has to be pursued, regardless of how comfortable it makes us or not. Truth is truth. We live a lot of philosophers have said that we live in a post-truth age. I don't believe that. We can claim, that our society doesn't believe in truth anymore, and that is absolutely the case. That doesn't mean I have to go that way. And that philosophy doesn't get us anywhere as a species. We don't advance by looking at things and saying, well, I just don't want to deal with that. That's the mentality that creates bad ideas. And bad ideas, no matter how inconsequential it may seem at the time, can lead to catastrophic events. Evil in the world is predicated on false ideas. So, though, yeah, you're right, the pursuit of UFOs and cryptids in and of themselves doesn't lead to a better world, but the truth that they reveal, the information about the world around us that they illuminate, does make the world a better place, in my opinion. We need to know. It's just the way it happens. And so I believe that, and I do think that the church over the last 150 years has absolutely dropped the ball on this stuff. There were times in the recent past when people would talk about giants. They would talk about these things. They would talk about dragons. It didn't bother them.
They would also use Ouija boards.
What?
They would also use Ouija boards.
Yes, there have been those who would. In fact, in the deep past, you want to go back to the Middle Ages, things like tarot readings, or what we would call tarot readings, astrology. Those things were seen. Were often used. The world wasn't as cut off as it was. However, unfortunately, we kind of dropped the ball. We stopped asking questions. In many ways, what I think really happened is, as the scientific revolution came around, instead of applying those techniques and understandings to these questions, the church sort of said, okay, we're going to let science determine what physical reality is, and we're going to talk about theological reality. Well, the problem is, those, again, when I say that it isn't about science versus religion, but religion versus religion, what happened is, in the realm of science, I put that in quotation marks very deliberately, we had the rise of scientism. And there's only one philosophy that sort of is allowed to exist there, which is this purely atheistic Darwinian thought. And if you say, hey, maybe this doesn't work, you're kicked out. When I was studying archaeology, one of the things I discovered real fast is if you find the wrong object, you become a florist. You don't get to be Indiana Jones finding these weird things and say, hey, look at this weird thing I found. You need to make certain that you fit within certain paradigms or you're gone, right? That's the way the world works. And so the problem is that I think too many in the church said, well, we don't want to deal with that. We'll just let them. They think, if we contradict what these people say, then we'll look crazy. Well, I think it's crazy to not address the fact that people are seeing things. The fact that people are seeing living pterosaurs means something. What does it mean? Well, that's worthy of discussion. People are seeing shadow people. Well, what does that mean? That's worthy of discussion. People see UFOs. What does that mean? Well, that's worthy of discussion. We can't just shove all this stuff off our tables and pretend that they don't exist.
Jason McLean is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jason, how has the reaction been from your fellow churchgoers around you when you tell them that you basically go hunting monsters to try and solve some of these godly riddles?
Honestly, I'd like to say it's been a mixed bag, but it pretty much falls under one of two categories for me. Again, most people have known me for a while, so I don't really stand out. But usually, it's like, well, I'm glad someone's looking at it. I don't know what to do with it, but they just sort of let it go. Or they'll say, "I'm really glad you're looking into this. By the way, can I tell you about something that happened to me?"
See, that sentence right there is pretty much 98% of Canada, because we don't like talking about anything up here unless it's like the Coke versus Pepsi debate, or how we live in igloos and chase around moose through the streets of Toronto, even though that's probably hasn't happened in over 100 and some years. However, like up here, it's always funny because when I tell people what I do, and they'll say, well, what do you do? Well, I host a paranormal radio show. I have one of the largest in North America. And they'll be like, oh, that's funny. You really do that? Yeah, I do. Well, there was this one time. And, they're always giving a little look of you making sure nobody else is listening. And it's like, come on, tell me about them aliens you got.
Exactly. No, actually, three stories in the book came from people I'd known for years. And once I sort of came out as doing what I did publicly, I took a year off to sort of pursue some avenues. They all said, "Wow, well, let me tell you about this thing that happened to me." And I'm like, "I have known you for 20 years. Where has this story been?" And they're like, "I didn't know that I could tell you. I didn't know that it would be okay to tell you." And the funny thing is, you tell people you're a biblical paranormal researcher working on a book, people will immediately be like, "Okay, I can talk to this guy." I didn't actually have to do a lot of digging to find people who are like, "Yeah, I've seen this weird thing and it's a pterodactyl," but or it's a Bigfoot, or it was. Let me really tell you about this whacked out thing that happened to me in Cedar Hill. So it really opened my eyes that there are a lot of things that we don't talk about in our society, right? Because at some point you're worried about being crazy. But I kind of look at it again, I say, but if you're not looking at reality, then you are crazy. For me, craziness is covering all of this up and not discussing it. Craziness is pretending that we're not seeing things that we're seeing. Again, I think I want to know what the shape of the world really is. I want to know where we are. How do we fit into this universe? And these things all are simply pieces of a much larger puzzle. But unless we admit those pieces exist, we're never going to solve it.
Do you think that, from a religious standpoint, that there are all of these nuances and mysteries that are just left there hanging for us from, using your perspective, a godly perspective? Or do you think that we're not supposed to find the answers to questions about aliens, angels, Bigfoot, ghosts, the afterlife?
Well, I think there's some questions it takes your entire life to answer, right? But beyond that, I think the thing is, a lot of this isn't that it isn't addressed in the Bible or in Christian tradition. It's that we stop talking about it. A lot of what we encounter, again, like I said, it fits very, very well within the biblical worldview, and in fact, you would expect to find these things. The problem is, again, about 150 years ago or so, we've really done a bad job of having this kind of conversation. We don't want to. It scares us for some reason. Again, I think because we sort of said, okay, we'll let scientists look at it this way, and this is the only way to view it. We've actually limited our scope of information gathering to what we consider science. The problem is, it's only one way of knowing something, and so the problem is, I don't know why. I wish I had a better answer as to why we did this, but as a culture, we just sort of rejected other pursuits, and it's like, if we can't put it in a test tube or poke it with a stick, then we don't want to know about it. And I think that these questions are questions we are supposed to answer. And again, like I said, I think a lot of it fits very neatly. We just have to be willing to ask the question, and this is probably the harder part. We have to be willing to face the truth. Once you've asked that question, you need to be willing to accept the answer. And the problem I've seen with whether it's cryptozoology, ufology, it isn't the Christians they have the biggest problem with. It's the people for whom you talk to them and you're like, hey, well, what about this? You ask them a question. They don't want that question asked because they know the consequence of the answer, right? Again, I have never once read anyone who was studying gorillas who said, I was in the camp, day 973 of hanging out with the gorillas, and I saw the shadow men came into my tent again last night. Like, you don't have that. But with Bigfoot researchers, it's like, well, we were out looking for Bigfoot. We had this really interesting contact, then we had these orbs show up. Or we were out looking for Bigfoot, and we saw this shadow creature walk up among us. This family was being visited by UFOs and abducted on a regular basis. And by the way, yes, they are also getting shadow people and poltergeist activity, right? There's overlaps. And you ask those questions, sometimes people aren't happy with the fact that you're asking them because they don't really want that answer. Why is it that UFOs, people who have been abducted by UFOs, we have over 400 cases where traditional Christian exorcist techniques go for it. Yeah.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Jason, as we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Author, researcher, Jason McLean religion, Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts. We're having a great talk. We'll be back right after this. One sec here, because I made an embarrassing boo-boo in my chat room. I accidentally blocked one of my wrenches, Kira, and
Oh, no.
I was trying to block this spam, and the chat room jumped on me, and I could not get, and her post jumped up next, and I was like, oh no, I blocked the wrong person, son of a gun, son of a gun.
That's actually why we stopped blocking people. Now, some people still have trouble commenting on our thing, but we don't block anybody because it just, like you said, because then you start blocking the wrong person. And you're like, dang it, because the chat moves on you.
I know.
Like, no.
I know.
Like I said, we just stopped. But YouTube's gotten weird.
I just feel bad. I totally feel bad right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's probably going to throw a shoe at me, you know?
We call them chanclas down here.
Yeah. Well, now you kind of got a taste of what we do. I hope you're enjoying yourself so far.
Oh, I'm having all kinds of fun.
Good stuff. Yeah, Kira got the 5-minute major. She got the penalty.
Penalty box.
Yeah.
Well, she's gonna come out. She's gonna put on some foil while she's in there.
Oh, hold on. Maybe I'm able to unhide her. There, I think I unhid her. Yeah, I unhid her. There we go. She should be able to chat now. Kira, please type a message. See if. There you are. Now, where did your wrench go? Son of a gun. I'm not good at this. Hi, Rachmaninoff. How you doing, man? We've got 127 people watching right now. That's kind of cool. Chris Reap, good to see you. Little Marky Spender, a.k.a. Timber Hunter. He's the guy who's going to shoot me in the leg if we come up to an animal, because he wants to be able to get away. The guy, he's on a cane right now after knee surgery.
Gotcha.
Totally right, Katie. Face for radio and blocks his own ops. It doesn't get any worse than that tonight. Does not get any worse than that. Don't forget a voice for print, too.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to say a big thank you early on here to Brett Murray, UFO Garage's Ben, Rob, Cat Chaser, Laura, Bigfoot Rob again, Catfish ×2 for those awesome super chats. Really do appreciate the love and support that you guys show us. It's a great way to support this show. And a big thank you to all of you. Hey, Cajun Jules, how are you? Welcome back to the show. Don't forget, if you're new, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. And, of course, our website, spacedoutradio.com. Follow us on Twitter. I'll go over all that crap when I get back to it. Hey, Christoph, how you doing?
Ghost cat. Okay, I'm interested to hear about that one.
Which ghost cat?
Oh, someone said they heard a ghost cat, and I'm like, okay, I'd like to learn what that's about.
Ghost cat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Actually, a friend of mine.
One sec. Katie,
go for it.
Katie, if you look down below the chat, there is a $sign there. You got to hit that. I don't know how it works either. I just know it has something to do with that. Cryptid559, how are you, man? Look at my buddy Mark here. Gonna need a thumb to plug the hole in your leg, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. That's my friend. That's my best friend right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got aliens. Yeah, that's kind of what we do.
Hey,
I
dig it.
We're on a radio timeout right now.
Oh, I get it. Nope, I completely understand.
Yeah. So, hi, John Ballerman. How are you, man? Brian Smith, thanks for coming. 1, 2, 3, 4. I made him a wish. What happened? Because it's only 9:34 here. All right, we've got 20 seconds before we're going to get going. And, yeah. I'll reintroduce you.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. What the heck? Since we're here. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for all of you joining us live as we speak about these topics of the woo. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with author, researcher, lecturer, and a man with a fantastic beard. We got Jason McLean here with us. Jason, tell us a little bit about your book and where people can find it.
Well, the most recent book is Metroplex Monsters, Dallas Demons, Fort Worth Goatmen, and Other Terrors of the Trinity River. That thing right there for those who are watching live or even recorded. It is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, pretty much anywhere you can buy books. But yeah, no, it's available, Metroplex Monsters. It's sort of a love letter to my hometown, in a way. It gave me a chance to play with the history of the area and give people some background on on where this place all comes from, right? And so, but in there are the stories, right? The weird stories, the stories people don't want to talk about. I've got stories of a lechuza attacking a young woman in Oak Cliff. We've got Bigfoot moving up and down. Of course, we have to mention the most famous Bigfoot encounter in all of Texas, which is the Lake Worth monster, right? So we talk about that event, and we talk about a lot of these things, the living pterosaurs, the giant catfish that people see from time to time, the giant alligator gar, even our own little Loch Ness monster, old One Eye out in Lake Granbury. So I relate only the most reliable accounts that I was able to find. There's a bunch I had left out. But I get to place them in their cultural context as well, right? We get to talk about that. The evolution of lore, folklore, stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun. I learned a lot while doing it, and really it's like I said, it's a love letter to the city, or to the area, the counties that we live in.
All right, you mentioned it, so we got to get into this right off the bat, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Goatman.
So this is where things get really interesting. Goatman is a moniker for Bigfoot. It just is. The problem is when you get to the Goatmen of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, some are clearly encounters with a Bigfoot. Others, they are very clearly not. This all started with the Lake Worth Monster event from the 60s, right? Everyone sort of knows about it. Jim Mars wrote about this. It's a very public event. Dozens of people see this creature, including police officers. But it gets the name Goatman. That's what Jim Mars calls it. And so what happens is all of the accounts of Bigfoot in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area become the Goatman. I show in the book that we have plenty of accounts of these creatures being seen and observed and heard and talked about for decades before that event, going back to the late 1800s when people were first settling where we live now. We were seeing and hearing these accounts of the monster or the creature that roams these creeks. But in the 60s, everything became the Goat Man. And as we see in Cedar Hill, I was lucky enough that the people of Cedar Hill, the Historical Society, actually retained a story of two different encounters from the fall of that same year, where I believe what may have even been the exact same creature had moved down, right? And people saw it. And so the problem is it became Goat Man. That became the name. So they associated these two. But other places like the Denton's Old Alton Bridge, which is one of the more famous bridges of in the area, or haunted bridges in the area, has a Goat Man legend. That clearly has nothing to do with Bigfoot. But what I also found is the things that Jim Mars wrote about, right, the events of the Lake Worth monster, they carried over to all of these different locations. So when people talk about Goat Man, they're really reciting a lot of the stuff that that happened over in Fort Worth in the 60s, but it gets overlaid in these specific spots, like White Rock Lake, which has its own Goat Man. The thing about that Goat Man is that people actually see him as a Goat Man. He is a 7-foot tall person with horns, goat legs, whole 9 yards. And thus far, prior to the publishing of this book, only one person had ever come out and said that they had seen it publicly. A lot of people had said that they had seen it, but no one actually publicly said, yes, this is me, I saw it. That was Sandy Grace. Nick Redfern wrote about her in one of his books. I, however, was able to find another person, in fact, one person with a group of people who witnessed it before Sandy Grace did. They were out partying one night, and they were all out. It was past midnight, and they're like, you know what? Let's just walk on over right there at Snuffers, popular restaurant in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they walked over about a mile to White Rock Lake. And while they were walking, one of the women they were with was walking a little bit faster. She turned around to make fun of the slowpokes, right? And saw the creature. She screams and freaks out. Everyone turns around, and there it is, standing in the light of this light pole, right? It's like something out of a book, right? So the fact of the matter is, yeah, it's a complicated issue because there's this overlap between Bigfoot and this other, but people see this creature. The weird thing, though, is when you move a little bit away from White Rock Lake, you follow the tributaries, people have other encounters with creatures about the same height, and they have similar features, but they're missing the horns, it's missing the fur. So the question is this a creature that's taking a specific form because of the legend? And then as it moves away from that source point, it changes? I don't know, but that's what people are seeing.
To me, when I think Goat Man, I think of something along the lines of Beelzebub, Satan, and all of the minions that kind of run around there as well.
Mm-hmm. Baphomet, yeah. No, and people see those things. And that's the thing is, whether it's the Lechusa or the Goat Man, all of these creatures seem to have parallels that go way back into antiquity, right? Today we call them goat men, but back in the Indo-Russian period, they were calling them Leshy. To the Hebrew, they were the Shahadim. The Lechusa of today is simply the I just forgot the name. Darn it, the Greeks, they had them. Darn it. Harpies. They were the Harpies for the Greeks. It was Lilith for the Sumerians. All these creatures seem to be found in our mythology. They seem to haunt us and follow us, but they seem to be very, very real, and we don't seem to ever really escape them.
So you believe that Goat Man is actually a Bigfoot?
No. Well, again, this goes back to the complication, right? The problem is the Lake Worth monster was, most people believe, to be a Bigfoot. It was more accurately described as a Bigfoot, just maybe with mange. So I was able to do a little bit of research between what Jim Mars had, in his reporting, had done with some people who rescued dogs. Because I was starting to read between some of the lines of what Jim Mars was writing, and what it looked like was a Bigfoot, a tangible physical creature that was throwing trash and throws a tire at people, right? Real thing. But that was a Bigfoot. The problem is the name Goatman is what becomes folklore, right? It sort of gets separated from Bigfoot and becomes the name du jour for all the paranormal events in and around Dallas-Fort Worth, right? So now we got Goatman's Bridge. But the problem is we got a Goatman in Denton, we got a Goatman in Dallas and White Rock Lake, we got a Goatman in Cedar Hill, we got a Goatman out in Johnson County on also AKA Old Soapy, which is the worst name for a Goatman ever.
That is an awesome name. Soapy.
Yeah. So it's Old Soapy because of the name of the road. That's an interesting story unto itself. But the thing is, clearly these are paranormal stories, and a lot of these are even the Denton Goatman, right? That's not even that story. That's just the Hangman's Bridge story that you can find all over the South. A lot of this is local folklore, and the name gets put on top of it. The phenomena gets sort of put on top of it because when you go out to Old Denton Road and the old Alton Bridge, almost everything there's paranormal. It's your traditional ghost haunting stuff. It's your poltergeist material, right? But you go down again, you go to White Rock Lake and people are seeing an actual Goatman. You go down to Cedar Hill, people are having weird phenomena occur. So it's, I think the problem is that we are using the same name for multiple phenomena. And so, and I think that's even the problem with Bigfoot, is that we're putting a lot of phenomena in a box. We're labeling it Bigfoot or we're labeling Goatman. And it's confusing the matter. That's why we're having so much trouble maybe understanding what's what, is because we're putting the things in wrong boxes. But like I said, the Goatman phenomenon is really, really interesting because there is a clear paranormal aspect to it. There's a folklore aspect to it. There's a Bigfoot aspect to it. And we got to, like that nice sushi guy that you go at the restaurant that's chopping everything up. We got to get everything divided out appropriately to figure it all out.
Jason McLean is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jason, do you have any of Goatman stories of weird encounters with this thing?
Oh, absolutely. The weirdest encounter actually is in Cedar Hill. But again, outside of the fact that people actually, the accounts of people seeing it near White Rock Lake and physically seeing it, the weirdest one is actually in Cedar Hill, where a family is seemingly haunted by, and again, the problem is, I call it a chupacabra just for the alliteration of it, but that's because what he claimed he saw looked like what someone had drawn a chupacabra to look like. But I'm looking at it, I think it looks like a gray alien. But this house was haunted. And again, we have to remember, Goatman is a local legend. Like the area where this was encountered was around Mount Lebanon Road, which is where there are numerous Goatman legends, right? You've got this road that connects to two different cemeteries, and they all have Goatman mythology. But in this one house, they were haunted. The television would come on with weird letters and words and ask people things. The kid's young sister would say, "There's a guy in my room," and sometimes they would see this creature sitting on her bed, and it would just fade into it. He would see it from time to time in the backyard. It was weird. Hold on. Yep, that sounds like a night well spent to me.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, we've got some wild stories. The thing is, that area, like I said, it connects two different. That road actually directly connects to two different cemeteries, very, very old cemeteries, the earliest in the area, and they both have Goatman legends. People see them, and what's worse is it's complicated by the myth of the Hinky Man, or the story of the Hinky Man, which peruses 10 Mile Creek, which connects to the Trinity River. It is clearly based on a combination of people seeing Bigfoot, but then taking the Krampus mythology and sort of laying it on top of it. So we got some weird and wild stories, some weird and wild traditions out here.
Chupacabra is another one that I don't know if it really exists. I mean, I want to lean towards maybe coyotes with mange or wolves with mange or coy wolves. or runaway stray dogs or whatever, because we know when you get into those rural type of areas, that's where a lot of, jerks of human beings will just let their dogs go and say fend for
Yeah.
themselves. We see that
Hmm.
with a lot of dogs, especially race dogs in Nevada, Arizona, and
Yeah.
the Texas area. Is this a real creature, or is this just a wild dog breed that has learned to survive?
Both. And this goes back to my point about the Goat Man, right? Being sort of this popular name that everyone keeps throwing at the phenomena in the area. The problem with the chupacabra, right, is that it became popular, and then every unknown phenomenon gets labored with this chupacabra mythology. In fact, very, very early on, once it was really blew up, if you remember back that far, because again, Texas, we heard about it really early. There were like 3 different versions of the chupacabra. One that looked like an alien with like an alien that was a reptilian and then had spines on it. One that looked like a kangaroo but also had spines on it, and then this third one that sort of was really weird. But if you look at the koi dogs, right, that everyone says is the chupacabra, well, they are clearly a unique species or breed. I think breed's probably the safer word. They are unique. They have their own proportions, their own dentition. They are unique. But I think that they are clearly a part of the mythology. That's where you get that sort of kangaroo version of it, right? And this goes back to even the Jersey Devil. What we often forget is the drawings that are put in newspapers and magazines are not by people who've seen this creature. These are people these are artists who are being paid. They're churning them out as quickly as possible, and they're not actually trying to forensically take the story and engineer what people are seeing. They just want to make something look flashy so they can sell the paper, right? That's when you get these really weird, whacked out creatures. So the phenomena of animals being dead and desiccated, that goes. My grandfather talked about that, right? So that's a long-standing phenomena. These koi dogs are unique. Again, like you said, they're a byproduct of people just dumping their dogs and probably hooking up with packs of coyotes. But they are seen, and they sort of became. And people started calling them chupacabras. Then we had and associating them with the phenomena of the dead animals, right? And so they put them together. So the koi dogs are a piece of the chupacabra mythos. They're just not the cause of the phenomena. And that's what we kind of have to do, is we have to start pulling apart these Gordian knots of folklore and unknown species and unknown phenomena to really get at the core. So there is an aspect of this, and that allows us to understand, okay, this is how it looks like, how folklore develops in real time. That's what we can do now. With all the technology we have, we can communicate faster. We can see how these things grow and evolve. But the purpose of it isn't just to leave it there, but really say, okay, koi dogs, they were an aspect of this chupacabra myth, but now we got to figure out if these animals are dying because an animal or something is draining them of blood. The question is, what is that thing? What is that phenomena? So again, that's why I say it's both. Yes, the chupacabra theoretically is real, and yes, there are koi dogs, and yes, they've been connected. We just need to disconnect them, recognize them for what they are, because I'm just as excited to discover a new breed of animal that was unknown to us even 10, 15 years ago. We didn't know what these things were. Now we do. I find that very exciting.
How far south do chupacabra roam around? I mean, are they into South America, or are they just Mexico and in that Central America area?
As near as we can tell, so here's the thing: is we've seen them in, Mexico, southern Texas is where they seem to be the most popular, but they've shown up on game cams in northern states in America as well. There was one that was seen in Virginia. They don't seem to be as popular. They do seem to migrate, but mostly you see them in and around southern Texas and northern Mexico.
So they're not really going any further south or north.
They seem to be hanging out for now, but everything likes to move. It just depends on weather, where food. If food's advantageous. Also, you have to understand that there's also this move for coyotes and red wolves in other states, and so you have that pressure, right? As big cats like mountain lions are coming back into Texas, they're going to go after the same kind of prey. Mm-hmm. So they're probably being kept in check by the big cats.
How did they make their way over there that far west if they were first spotted in Puerto Rico?
Well, so that's the thing, is those dogs probably weren't the things spotted in Puerto Rico. They got the name. People, they hear the name Chupacabra, and they got associated with it in Mexico and in southern Texas. But it's probably not what they saw in Puerto Rico. In fact, when you look at the earlier stories of what was seen in Puerto Rico, it seemed to be a completely different creature altogether. So, again, what is the Chupacabra? I don't know. We're going to have to dig more and harder and longer to find that out. But what we know is at least one aspect of this whole epic is the koi dog, and we can now put it in its appropriate box and set it where it needs to be, so we can continue trying to figure this thing out.
Jason, we have about 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. And I want to stick with this because in Texas, you have a lot of weird stuff, not only flying in the sky, but being seen all around. So let's just focus on Texas for right now. And with the Chupacabra, how often are these being seen? And could that the animals that they are hunting, stalking, preying on, could that not be, to be pragmatic here, a portion of those being from the wild hog population that is out of control?
So that's a really great question. As far as we'll call it the Chupacabra phenomena, and to be very, very specific, it's an animal it's usually a domesticated animal that has died. There doesn't seem to be any real trauma, and the blood does seem to have been desiccated. Also, to throw in with this is that scavengers usually don't scavenge off of the carcass. They tend to leave it alone. These are weird patterns because as we've all seen, Texas, we farmed for generations. You know what a coyote does to a chicken when it finds it. It's not just going to kill it; it somehow drains blood. So this is an odd phenomenon. The problem is, to my knowledge, I don't know anyone who has reliably seen what is actually causing the deaths of these animals. Now, there is a possibility that there are animals that die, and if they lay in a particular position long enough, the blood actually coagulates on the bottom. That has been thrown out there for a lot of these deaths, so then maybe they aren't all as exotic as we'd like them to, as many people like them to be. But there are some who said, "Look, I've been out here for years. I know, we've farmed for generations. We know what these animals look like when they die of natural causes. This is not a natural cause. The scavengers don't show up on these animals." No one has reliably seen that. What's happened is we have these events, and people see the koi dogs later, and that's how they got associated with those stories. But the actual Chupacabra phenomena, no one's actually ever seen it. So the question becomes: are the deaths of these animals supernatural in nature? Are they not? Are these maybe not the acts of some sort of a natural and just exotic predator, but are these the acts of something maybe more paranormal, more strange than we're used to seeing?
Well, that's the big question, and we gotta find that out. But are the answers out there?
I think the answer is out there. But unfortunately, sometimes we need to recognize that our ability to observe things is a huge hindrance. Right? 500 years ago, no one, if you had walked up and said, "Hey, everyone's getting sick because there are these tiny, tiny, tiny animals that are so small you can't see them, and we call them microbes, and other things are called bacteria, and we have viruses, and that's why everyone gets sick," you would have been laughed out of a room. Right? You'd be like, "That's insane. That's magic thinking. That's not real."
Right.
Because we didn't have microscopes. The problem with the paranormal, and we'll just use that term, is if we're talking about creatures in higher energy states,
yes,
we may not have the ability to observe them scientifically. So the problem is, again, this goes back to the mindscape of scientism, which is basically religious worldview. It's, well, if I can't put it in a microscope, if I can't poke it with a stick, then it's not real.
And I'm going to get you to hold on right there because
Go for it.
we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Author Jason McLean is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. You can find all his books, Barnes & Noble, and on Amazon if you're looking online. We're going to stick with Texas. We're going to stick with the monsters. And we're not talking the parents for high school kids playing football here. We're talking real monsters with Jason McLean next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, my friend, I'm just going to take a quick break here, run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
Go for it.
All right.
Have fun.
Yeah. You too. I'll be right back. Dave Scott. I'll be right back. Spaced Out Radio. All right, I am back.
Ah, you're back. We've been having a good time. We're talking about you behind your back.
Oh, good, good. All right. Thank goodness I had your microphone down.
There you go.
Yeah. Uh-huh. All right. You got about 90 seconds or so.
All right, cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's all good. All good. Things are running smoothly, and we're having a good time, and I hope you are. And
I'm enjoying it.
Good. Perfect. All right. Me too. I love Monster Talk.
Oh, yeah. Again, they didn't get much room, but my favorite stuff in the book is actually the stuff about the Trinity River, the fish.
Got some weird fish there?
Yeah, every once in a while. I got a chance to talk to the guy who did that eDNA study on Loch Ness a few years back. That was fun.
All right. Get you to hold on 1 second here. Big thank you to everybody who has donated to the Super Chat tonight. Catfish ×3, Christoph, Rob ×2, Laura, and Cat Chaser, Ben, Murray, Brett. Really appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much for the love that you show me on a nightly basis. Thank you to all of our new subscribers. I checked right before the show. We were at 11,333. Nice poker hand. Nice cosmic hand there for the amount of subscribers we have. A Big Bad Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. If you're on YouTube, you should be subscribed to him as well as UFO Garage from Ben and Joe, who will be joining us on the round table on Friday night. So, yeah, we're having a good one. Let's do this. Jason McLean is our guest. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. So sit back, relax, sit tight, because here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Naufragious. Naufragious is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with author, researcher Jason McLean. He's been writing about these weird, strange topics for a long time, and he's got some great books out. You can find them on Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon.com. Jason, welcome back.
I'm happy to be here. Just for a minor point of clarification, my most recent book, Metroplex Monsters, is on Barnes & Noble, but basically all my other books are on Amazon.
Very cool.
So, yeah, you can find the rest of my stuff there.
Very cool. Thank you for that. Hey,
no problem.
Let's talk about Texas here, because there's a lot of strange stuff that happens. In the north, you got Bigfoot. In the south, you got the Chupacabra. You got everything from Goatman to Ropins to Thunderbirds. Let's look in the air for a little bit here, because I got to tell you, man, one of the stories that really, really intrigues me is the Ropin. Now, fellow Texan Jonathan Whitcomb has been looking into the pterodactyl phenomena for a number of years, and sightings from Texas all the way to the Australian area, New Zealand, Fiji area, right up here to British Columbia and Alaska's border. That seems to be the territory for this creature that when it flies, it seems to have a red glowing light in its chest.
So there have been several colors associated with it. Again, so this becomes the question. We don't really know for a fact that these are bioluminescent, right? I do talk about the possibility of them being bioluminescent. And you can connect that to the Van Meter visitor, which seemed to be like a pterodactyl-like creature. That's one of the more famous events. But we don't really know that these pterosaurs are lighting up, or if they are, which version, because there does seem to be entirely possible 2 different species of pterosaurs still alive today. There's the ones that I saw, which was a rhamphoractoid. These are much, much smaller creatures. But then there are accounts of them that seem to be much larger, and that seem to be more akin to, say, a pteranodon than what I saw. What I saw had a long flanged tail. I believe it to be the origin of, when we talk about dragon's tails, right? When we see that little triangular shape, I think it's because those were the wyvern, right? I talk a little bit about that in the book. But we do seem to have other people who are counting larger, much, much larger animals. So the question becomes, is it that they're all the same creature, maybe at different stages of development? Are they able to bioluminesce? We don't really know. It could be that there are 2 completely different species running around. One bioluminesces, one doesn't. But unfortunately, the only thing we can say for certain is people are seeing these creatures. And we need to take them seriously, or we'll never discover where are they breeding? How are they migrating? Do they migrate? It's entirely possible that the smaller ones don't, the larger ones do. Are they hunters or scavengers? What are they? What are they feeding off of? Are they fish, or are they just scavenging dead dogs off the road? We don't know. Some of the larger ones down the Rio Grande Valley do seem to be scavengers. There's even stories of them breaking up open air funerals because they were trying to get at the body. Again, back ways when they weren't preserved. So it becomes a little iffy, but there does seem to be a large body of evidence for the existence of these creatures. And we've got to, and it just takes a lot. We're just going to have to put a lot more resources in actually trying to track them down.
So with this ropid, it seems to have a large area of flight over the Pacific. That would mean some pretty large nests, man. Whether it's on an island in Hawaii, whether it's in Texas, Mexico, British Columbia. I know there's a First Nations group north of me that believes the ropin there are responsible for a number of humans disappearing and being taken as food by these creatures. So explain what the ropin looks like and about its territory.
Well, so that's where things get complicated because, again, I wouldn't necessarily say that the creatures that are native to North Texas, right, the ones that are observed, and I recount them in the book, are the same as the ropin. I don't know that. I think the ropin may be a different species, and what it looks like is the ropin may be akin to the pteranodon. The rhamphoractoids that I saw are smaller. They have a long flanged tail. They're more akin to the wyvern of medieval lore. The pteranodons, which appears to be what the ropin is, again, assuming they're 2 different species, is more like what you'd see on the Flintstones, right? Large, has a crest, and what appears that they do is they actually, and both species seem to do this, they ride thermal currents. They tend to, instead of flying by flapping their wings the way birds do, they appear to use currents to ascend and then fly over great distances. That's why you can have what appears to be creatures in Papua New Guinea and then also across the Pacific and into Canada. Now, the question becomes, are the creatures that we're seeing, say, in the Rio Grande Valley, which is very, very far South Texas, are they moving up, sort of using thermal currents, riding them to move up into California and then up into British Columbia and then back down as a migratory area? Are these the same being seen in Papua New Guinea? Are they migrating, or are they different groups? We don't know that. We don't have an answer for it, unfortunately. And that is part of this whole problem of we need the resources to track these things down. We need a lot of people. We need a lot of money to figure that out. So hopefully, at some point, someone will have the evidence needed for science to take this seriously so we can track them down. Again, I don't think that they would have nests like, say, a bird would, right? These are reptiles. They just happen to fly. So what we need to be looking more on are like holes, caves, maybe that have been dug into, or natural occurring caves that they're using to create layers, right? Dragons. I think a lot of our dragon myths are coming from these creatures and others that have another what we would call dinosaurs that have survived up until this day. We should probably be looking more for these creatures more in cave-like structures, in areas where they can use thermal currents to begin their flight and ascend into the air.
So what's the difference between a pterodactyl and a ropin?
Well, so again, that's a great question. The pterosaur I saw was a rhamphorhactoid. They have more of a reptilian-looking face. Like, they don't really have a beak. They have teeth. They don't have a crest typically. It appears that some may have a crest. That may be more of a function of sexual dimorphism. They're usually smaller, and they have a long flanged tail that they use to fly. The pteranodon, which is what appears to be the ropin, is it's the one that has the beak, right? It's got a long actual beak. It has the large crest. They don't have much of a tail. The tail seems to be like it's sort of like a stub kind of a thing. However, as Mr. Whitcomb in his book noted, in Cuba, right, there was back in the 50s and 60s, there was a gentleman who saw one. And he talks about how large it was. And it looked like it was a pteranodon, but he gave it a flanged tail. And that is sort of one of these things that becomes iffy. And part of the hard question of all this is sometimes those pteranodons are shown having tails. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the people down here, the ones that are seen in North Texas, sometimes they have tails, sometimes they don't. So this does become part of the oddity of human observation, right? Are the people who don't describe the tail, are they just not seeing the tail because they're focused on the fact that they've got something that's not supposed to exist in front of them? Or are we seeing different species? Or again, like I said, is it possible that the creatures we see here in North Texas are younger or juveniles, and that these larger ones that are seen in the Rio Grande Valley, going up into Canada, in Papua New Guinea, are they the adults, right? Once they get to a certain size, they go out to the open ocean in these larger areas. We don't know if it's one or two or three different species of creatures, unfortunately. But the two main descriptors seem to be, one looks like a pteranodon, again, like what you'd see on the Flintstones, right? No tail, beak, head crest, while the smaller ones, they're 8 to 10 foot wingspan, seem to have no crest. They have a more reptilian face with lots of teeth, and they have a long flanged tail.
Okay, so if they don't have nesting, there still has to be a breeding population. There still has to be enough people out there to have seen these creatures flying together, maybe flying in packs, not individually. Where are these sightings coming from? How often are they happening?
Well, that's sort of the funny thing is near as I can tell, people see these things all the time. I never ran out of people who saw these creatures. They saw them. But again, the problem was they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to be and if you go back, people talked about seeing these things all the time in newspapers. Now, they weren't everyday events, but people did see them. As far as why, say, the creatures here in North Texas tend to hide a little bit better, I think it's a combination of two things, right? One is they're mostly nocturnal, right? They're only seen at night, or they're primarily seen at night. Secondly, right, is for the ones here in North Texas, they seem to look enough like herons and cranes that with our day-to-day lives, we live on little concrete islands, and we stay on our phone and we drive 70 miles an hour from home to work. We just don't notice them when they are. Again, I had my encounter in the morning. Two other people had them about the same time of the morning, 9-10 a.m. The third person, or one of the other persons, saw it at night. That's why they thought it was an owl at first, was because it was at night. So I think they are survived and they hide from us by having a very low population. They're mostly only seen at night, And when they're active, that seems to be the time they're active. And when they are seen during the day, most people don't recognize them for what they are because they just think of them as something that's familiar, like a crane, and they move on. If I had not stopped to really look at it, I would have said, oh, wow, that was a really big blue heron I saw. The only reason I saw it for what it was because it got right in front of my face. Everyone I talked to who was admitted to seeing one said, yeah, I thought it was this other bird. So that's how they're able to hide. But as near as I can tell, people see these things all the time. They just don't want to be the weird guy who said, yeah, I saw a pterosaur.
Okay, and I can buy that theory and that logic. I think that makes complete sense. But breeding populations,
yes,
even in a small number, you still have to have a certain amount of creatures over the last couple million years in order to keep this going. And that population over time would expand, and then it would shrink depending on the environment that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, we need at least, I believe, what's the number, 200 to 300 in order to keep it going.
Well, so two small points there. One, we don't know that they have to be around for millions of years. That's part of the question. That's why I think these creatures, a lot of these cryptids, of what we call cryptids, are, again, they fall into two groups. There's the paranormal, but then there's the physical. I think that the rope-in, these living pterosaurs, fall under that physical aspect. And I think the point is, if it had been 65 million years, you're right, they really shouldn't still be around, but they are. So that does call it into question. Secondly, it's not just here in North Texas that these creatures are being seen. They're being seen in Georgia. They're being seen in California. They're being seen all over Texas, in other places, southern Oklahoma. So it's entirely possible that there is, and as you've noted, the rope-ins, right, the larger pterosaur, if that is, again, just an adult version of what I saw, then their range may be thousands upon thousands of miles, not a few hundred or even a few dozen miles, right? There may be 200 all over the planet that are just hanging out. They stay isolated, they come together to breed, and then they move on. Like, because they're reptiles, they don't necessarily need to hang out for life. Think of Galapagos or any of the sea turtles. They make huge moves. They lay their eggs, they drop them off, they go back to the sea. That may be exactly what we see happening here. That they come in, they breed, and then they leave. And then the juveniles stay in an area, and then as they get bigger, they take further and further movements, and eventually they move their way back out into the broader world.
But science also tells us that dinosaurs have been dead for millions of years. Now, there are relatives, crocodiles, alligators, snakes.
Well, crocodiles and snakes are all they're reptiles. They're not related to dinosaurs.
Okay.
But those are completely different things. Most of dinosaurs even come in two different flavors. You have your reptiles. You do have some that are more reptilian, that are distinct from reptiles, but then you have your theropods, which are related to birds, like the T-Rex. We know that the T-Rex is related to chickens in some regards because we've been able to extract hemoglobin from some of these bones, and we were able to see certain reactions that they would have with chicken blood that indicates they are related. And another great instance of this, and something I like to point to personally, is the legend of the cockatrix. The cockatrix is a dragon that has a chicken head and torso. Now that sounds preposterous to us, right? But let me ask the question. You're alive in Iran 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and a 4-foot tall oviraptor runs in front of you. What are you going to call it? It's a dragon with a chicken head. They even had beaks. We know they had feathers, but we didn't know that the theropods had feathers until the last 30 years. It was really literally the mid-90s when people started realizing that theropods shared so many features with birds, right? So the question becomes, why can we see within legends we have all these quote unquote dragons that seem to line up with different dinosaurs that we've recorded? Again, science, I'm going to use that in quotation marks, says it happened millions of years ago. That's in doubt. That's in question. This goes back to the one of the big problems is that the mainstream science has a very specific perspective on all of this. If you bring up something, you find something that questions that worldview, you become a florist. You don't get to ask that question. In fact, it's one of the big things that made me lean into the Bible is the fact that anytime you found weird things like human footprints in the same strata as dinosaurs, or even overlapping dinosaur footprints, these footprints have been CT scanned to show that they were made at the same time the rock was. So they are actual footprints. They're not carvings. You ask the question, they don't want to answer it. You talk about the London hammer, a hammer that does not rust. And the reason it doesn't rust is because it was chemically bonded with chlorine to create a ferric oxide coating to prevent it from rusting. Found in rock that's supposed to be 200 million years old. Found in the 30s, before anything like that could be made. You ask, well, what is this? They say, we don't want to talk about it. Problem is, let's go back to the fact that we could even extract hemoglobin from T-Rex bones. If they died 65 million years ago, there should be no soft tissue, but we find soft tissue in bones. We should not find active hemoglobin in their bones, but we do. So the question becomes, if the model that we've been told exists is wrong, then we should expect to find things like that. Dinosaur bones, not fully fossilized. And yet, we could still have aspects of them that are viable to this day. We should be able to find creatures that we would call dinosaurs still alive today because they just didn't go extinct. What they are the remnants of a few handheld species that survived a cataclysmic event that changed our environment radically. That's the biblical worldview. In fact, what does the Bible say? There was a perfect world. It was destroyed. And everything that exists on this side of it is lesser, because a perfect world, you would expect it to be healthier, more robust, more diverse. That's exactly what we see. We see a cataclysmic event. We see animals fossilized, in transit, in herds, running as if they're running away from something. That's what we see in the fossil record. We find metal objects in iron mines, in coal mines, rather. Sorry, not iron mines. In coal mines, we find iron pots, brass bells. Every culture on the planet describes a cataclysmic flood-like event that wiped out the previous world, and that everything that came through it is what we see today. That is what we are seeing with physical cryptids are simply the remnants of that past world that made it through, that survived, but are very different enough from the new animals that adapted to this world to be more, dogs, cats, birds. They survived in this version easier, so they could become more prolific. All of these other animals are just weird animals that managed to make it through. They just couldn't be as successful to be common to us. And maybe some of them are even antagonistic towards our existence. And so we've hunted them down by calling them monsters, and we called them dragons, and we slayed them because they were just a little too dangerous for us to leave them alive or leave them alone, because humans are typically very we don't like to live with things that endanger our flocks of animals, right?
Very true.
We're not. Yeah, so we go and we wipe them out. Well, that's great. Imagine the carrier pigeon. We know the carrier pigeon existed, but we wiped them out. Well, 1,000 years from now, people could look back and say carrier pigeons didn't exist. It's all mythological, right? Same thing. But again, the question of, how they survive 65 million years? Well, maybe they didn't survive 65 million years. Maybe there wasn't 65 million years. Maybe the actual thing was they were fossilized only a few thousand years ago from a cataclysmic event that reshaped our entire planet. That's the biblical worldview. And that does seem to fit with what we see today. Be it the physical cryptids, we see paranormal cryptids that, as we were mentioning earlier, things people don't like to hear about. People in MUFON hate it when you talk about, hey, there are 400 recorded cases of people ending their abduction using traditional Christian exorcism techniques. That should not be happening. If this is some reptilian alien that evolved out of Zeta Reticuli and flew here in a spaceship, they should have much better technology when they're examining us instead of stuff that they seem to have bought from some dentist surplus from 30 years ago.
Let's finish that thought when we come back, because I will debate you on that anytime. Author Jason McLean is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We continue with anal probing and aliens right after this. I know you're going to school me here, but we'll go for it. What the hell? All right.
Well, it's all fun and it's all fun, and it's all fun and games until somebody gets probed. That's all I say.
Mm.
And you know what? A good colonic is good for your health. We have oftentimes, we aren't properly, cleansing our systems, and that can lead to health problems. So
very true. Polyps. You don't want the polyps.
No, you don't.
Yeah. All right. Hi, T-Rev. How you doing? Kat, the gorgeous Kit, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Hold on one sec. Swan Man, how you doing? Where's our... I want to give a shout-out. Where'd that go already? Scottish Tofu on Twitch, by the way. Our first official follower. We just started on Twitch yesterday. And nice. Scottish Tofu, you're number one, man. You're number one. And a big thank you for joining us. All of our shows, archives, we got them all on YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. They're all on Apple, Google Play, and any other type of podcasting site out there. We got probably, 1,000 shows on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Warden Dragon, how are you? Much love, Scottish Tofu. We appreciate you. Do us a favor, because honestly, dude, I have no idea how this Twitch thing works. I just joined up through my new broadcast studio, StreamYard here. But tell all your friends, share the love if you don't mind. Hey, Jason, we have a major important question to ask you.
All right.
All right. We ask this of all our guests. What's your opinion of eating breakfast foods for dinner?
I'm actually not a fan of breakfast foods in general. So I say dinner for breakfast.
Oh, you are a dream guest right now. Dream
Look,
guest.
I mean, listen. Is there anything better than waking up, getting a nice cold glass of milk, and last night's pizza?
Oh, well,
don't even warm it up.
These crazies in the chat room, they like waffles and pancakes and bacon and eggs for dinner. Now, bacon is a universal food. All right, I can't agree with that. Okay,
not really a breakfast food. It's just a food.
It's a food. It's universal, much like O positive and O positive blood. It's universal. Exactly. But yeah. I mean, these people are crazy. Hash browns and sausages and scrambled eggs for dinner. It's breakfast food for a reason. So I applaud you.
Now, I will say, I do like a good ranchero omelet, which has hash browns in it, ham in it, sour cream, But again, at that point, it's not even an omelet. It's just food. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a point where I think breakfast food stopped being breakfast food, right?
Yes.
Now it's just food.
I agree.
Like I said, I prefer dinner for breakfast. That's how I roll, man.
Yeah. Crazy people in the chat room. But they agree with you on pizza. One other thing I got to quickly do here, just so you know, one of our sponsors is Mighty Moose Beard Oil. And this beard oil, made by Gary the Dutchman out of Chilliwack, British Columbia. Now, he is Dutch. And if you know Dutch people the way I do, you never get a deal from a Dutchman. Not with Gary the Dutchman from Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to mightymoosebeard.com. I got my favorite here, the Winter Blend. Smells great. And, I washed my hair before the show. And you know what? But it needs some moisturizing. It needs some love. Just throw a little bit of that. You can rub it in your hands, give it in your beard like so. And then you just massage it in, people. You just massage it in. That's how it works. That's how easy to take care. No chemical compounds. It's all natural. right from British Columbia. If you are in the United States or anywhere around the world, remember, you are paying Canadian dollars. You're paying Canadian dollars, so you're getting an immediate discount right there, which is cool. And go to MightyMooseBeard.com. Use promo code SOR2019. SOR2019. You're going to get a discount with that. Look, a Dutchman giving you a discount. It's hard to believe, but we actually found one, people. There is one on this planet. His name is Gary from Mighty Moose Beard Oil. So go to MightyMooseBeard.com today and check it on out. Thank you. Had to get that in.
No, absolutely. And may I commend you on your lion-like mane.
Oh, you like that?
That's luscious. Yeah, look at that.
It used to be longer. It used to be down to here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I helped someone out who was suffering from cancer.
Understand.
So now I'm growing it again. We have 15 seconds here before we go to the show, so I'll get you to hold on. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and remind you that if you want to check out our free archives, like Scottish Tofu, our first ever subscriber on Twitch. Yes, thank you, Scottish Tofu. You can definitely check us out at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We got like over 1,000 shows there for you to choose from. Yes, 1,000. So if you just found us and you're wondering what are these guys all about, we've been doing this for a while. When you do 5 shows a week, you get a lot of archives. And the best part for you, our audience, we keep them free. We're not like the other shows that want to charge you for the archives. We're not doing that. No. We're not doing that at all. So they're all free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Jason McLean tonight. He's an author. You can find all of his books on Amazon, his latest at Barnes & Noble. And we're talking monsters. We're just getting into anal probing. Everyone's favorite topic when it comes to aliens. Why are aliens sticking things up our butts? Why not? Let's go there. Jason, welcome back.
I'm glad to be back. And why wouldn't you? I mean, let's face it. If you're traveling to another planet, why wouldn't you want to stick something up that alien's butt? I mean, that's what we would do. Let's be honest.
It's very true. And I think a lot of humans forget that. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do some not so nice things to animals.
Yeah, we
do. In the name of science.
In the name of science. But that being said, I mean, if you want to learn something about humans, you've got only 2 orifices that really let you get into things. So, I mean, we do things a lot that way anyway. So that really isn't my big problem. I go back to the problem I have is they seem to be buying all their equipment from, surplus dentist office. But that's I say that tongue in cheek, but the UFO abduction phenomena, I think, is really interesting the more you dig into it. And the problem is there's, again, what people say is seen and then what is actually seen. It can often be the problem. And often most pushback that I get from the UFO community is when you mention things that they don't like. Like, again, 400 accounts of people ending their abduction or years of abductions using traditional exorcism techniques. The association of what we would traditionally call poltergeist activity associated with people who have been abducted. There's a lot of aspects of this that people don't necessarily like. And when you mention it, you go on they're like, and they go after you for that. So again, the same way that uh, the mainstream doesn't like the existence of living dinosaurs. The UFO crowd doesn't really like the existence of some of these stories that don't fit their worldview.
Okay, so have you ever been taken?
Oh, no. Well, hold on. You mean while I was sober? No. I've been abducted by my friends a couple times, but no, I've not been taken by aliens.
There are many in our audience, the host
Mm-hmm.
included, who have had that experience.
A lot of people have.
And
And by the way, let me say, I do think that these are real experiences that are happening. I would never say that these are not, that the phenomena is not real. I think it is absolutely real. The question is, though, what are the creatures doing the abducting? And two, how often are and this ties into this broader question, how often are the experiences people remember the actual, how often is that actually what really happened to them? There are plenty of cases where people have woken up during, I think the most famous one, I forget the gentleman's name, was in Australia. He wakes up and there's two women in his room, right? They put him back. He hears them talking telepathically. They touch his forehead. He goes back to sleep, wakes up 4 hours later, and there's a hair in a place that I won't mention since we are on terrestrial radio as well. The hair comes back as human, but odd. It's from it's from some place in China that, or the genome is from some place is connected to this very remote tribe in China, which makes no sense at all. But the question is, for everyone who's been abducted, I think it's a real experience. Absolutely. But the problem is, do we know that what is remembered, is that what really happened? Or is that a false memory given to people who have been experimented on, right? And maybe they never left the room. Maybe they did. I think there are times when it's clear people were taken from where they were and from where they were and put somewhere else. Absolutely. But is that all of those encounters, or are those special encounters, right? The UFO phenomena in the abduction phenomena specifically is very, very complicated. And there's a lot of ins and outs. And for anyone who's undergone that trauma, I have nothing but sympathy for you. And I really want to hear these encounters, because I do think we need to parse them, but we need to, when we go through them, remember that unfortunately the person who's undergone that, we don't know if what you remember is what actually happened. Because we do seem to see cracks in the facade.
very true, very true. And a lot of people have said that they have seen, they believe they've been abducted by aliens, but, there's strange things around them, whether it's trees, whether it's a casino or a hotel or something along those lines that is familiar to them. So if this is happening, where does alien abduction fall in the religious aspect of this? Because from what I know, and trust me, I'm going to sound very naive here, so please forgive me right off the bat.
Please.
Okay, a lot of Christians who look into this topic, which they don't really look into, they just view it from a long arm length away.
Yes.
This is all demonic. This is all about the devil's work in getting things done. These aliens coming from the sky, the Bible says that this is something that we got to be aware of and be weary of getting into learning about this and inviting them in. It's dangerous.
So 2 points on that. One, and this goes back to something we mentioned at the beginning of the show. I don't think the church has done a great job of dealing with these, because there's a difference between what the Bible actually says about this stuff and what people have said the Bible says about these things. I am about, in all things, whether it's politics or religion or cryptozoology or, checkers, right? There is what people say about things, and then there's what the things actually are. Go and look at what the things actually are. Read the documents that people are talking about. And the problem is, what I've always found is that most people are arguing about the stuff up here. They're not actually arguing about the real thing itself. But so when it comes to UFOs, yeah, I think the problem is the church has done a very bad job of addressing it and dealing with it, because they want to deal with it at an arm's length. right? I think that's very appropriate because unfortunately, they don't want to be seen as crazy, right? That's what we've been talking about all day. Whether it's living pterosaurs or UFOs, or you know what? Let's get real deep for just a second. Kids who have been abused by teachers, right? Like it doesn't matter. People don't want to be the person to talk about those things, and we shove them under the rug because they make us uncomfortable. We have to address these things, and I believe all things need to be addressed in the light, full light of day, with everyone actually taking the witnesses seriously, regardless of what it is. That's not something anyone really does with this, whether it's UFOs or cryptids, because in many ways they endanger a lot of different worldviews, right? That's just what it is. The existence of living pterosaurs and Bigfoot endangers a certain narrative. Same thing with UFOs. That's why the mainstream wants to keep them out. They call all of their assumptions and presuppositions on the floor. Now, how do we deal with them? The problem is, again, if you look into it, yeah, there are clearly government aircraft, right? There is experimental technology, black ops technology. It would be ridiculous to say otherwise. In fact, I'm actually of the opinion that Roswell was a purely human-made thing. I don't think it was actually anything extraterrestrial. I think it was experimentation with technology that we had reclaimed from the Germans and from the Japanese. That's the other thing. Everyone knows about Operation Paperclip, and I can never remember the name of the operation. They got Japanese scientists, right? We took them, we brought them over here. We made them make stuff for us. So, but the point is, that is clearly a thing that exists, right? We have to admit that. There is clearly, however, phenomena that is a physical craft that does not align with what we know physics to be. And then there are craft that don't really appear to be physical, that also are not behaving the way physics would dictate. We have to have an explanation for those things. And I would argue, though, that the Bible does allow for it. Yeah, people like, well, it's a demon. Well, okay, the problem is even that phrase demon doesn't mean what most people think it means. That's the problem. Is that for so long we have such a superficial understanding of everything. We don't really want to get into, well, why do we even use the word demon? What does that actually mean? Why is it used? And the problem is we aren't getting into the realities that are around us, the hierarchies of entities that exist in the supernatural side, the paranormal side. We don't talk about the Nephilim. We don't talk about the fact that there are physical creatures that they can generate. And when you dig into it, it does become, even people who don't agree with me, right? Ufologists like Nick Redfern, Jacques Vallée. You read their writings, it's clear they wouldn't agree with me on any of this, but they do point out that a lot of a huge amount of the UFO phenomena is not what it appears to be. That they are actively deceiving us by trying to make us think that they are something. One of my favorite stories that Nick Redfern actually pulls out is a story of a lavender farmer in France. He goes out for his morning walk. He's just, wandering around, looking at his crops, making sure everything's healthy and lavendery, right? And he comes across an egg-shaped craft. And two aliens are out there grabbing all these handfuls of lavender. They see him, and they run inside their egg-shaped craft, and it takes off. He's the first one to point out that doesn't make any sense at all. If these are supposed to be aliens on some sort of scientific mission, they have all this technology that, stop and think about it. They can control us they can make us fall asleep when we're awake. They can control what we remember. They know when we're active. They can make themselves invisible to radar. They can make themselves invisible physically. They can move between walls, and yet we see them all the time. That encounter makes no sense. Another thing that's often brought up that I believe absolutely happened, and a lot of UFO researchers do agree happened, is the visitation with Eisenhower,
right?
And the 50s, right?
The Greada Treaty.
Exactly. They show up, and again, it's one of those things where there's some legitimate evidence that this event happened. Where because he goes missing for like 4 days, no one knows where he is. At the same time, the base in California is emptied out. I think the treaty actually occurred. I really do. But here's my problem: if you are aliens from a hyper advanced civilization with all of these super whiz bang slap down technology that you have to get here, right? Forget anything else, just to get here. There is no way out. We pose a threat to you. In fact, truth be told, they should look at us. They should be able to do their things without us even seeing them. Why make a treaty with an inferior species? It doesn't make sense unless they had to. Well, but why? Well, again, demonic entities do have to make treaties. They have to be given permission to do things. You have the connection between UFOs, poltergeist activity, as I've mentioned several times. These things they should not overlap as much as they do, yet they do. So for me, the preponderance of evidence says, is the UFO phenomena real? Of course, it is absolutely real. Is the abduction phenomena real? Yes, absolutely real. But are these creatures what they claim to be? I don't think what we actually see versus what they claim to be are two completely different things. Some dude walks up to you and says, "Hi, I'm Napoleon Bonaparte." You have two options, right? Either that is Napoleon Bonaparte, or it's some guy who's lying to you. Or maybe he's insane and genuinely believes he's Napoleon Bonaparte, but he's not Napoleon Bonaparte. So you have to take what does somebody say versus what you can observe. It's like, well, okay, or are you a French dictator? No. Well, okay, then you're probably not Napoleon Bonaparte. In the same way, we look at the UFO phenomenon and say, does this behave like creatures from another planet, from this hyper advanced civilization, with all this super tricked down double throwback technology, or is it something that's trying to look like it's those things? For me, it's the latter. That's, when you put all the preponderance of evidence on the table, that's what it looks like. The problem is a lot of people take the evidence that they don't like and they remove it off the table, right? Having one or two people say, look, I used Jesus' name and the thing stopped. For me, that would mean nothing. The fact that you have 400, that's a different story. The fact that I have personally dealt with people who were abducted and were having the poltergeist activity, I was able to help them stop that. The sleep paralysis, I was able to help them stop that. Again, people who've had UFO and or satanic ritual abuse in their childhood, both of them, same phenomena. Shadow people coming, paralyzing. I shouldn't see that overlap, but I do. So for me, I look at it and say, this is all real, but this is what we should actually come to expect. This is what we should see it if the Bible's accurate, I believe it is, then we should expect to see these creatures. We should expect to see them try to recreate the Nephilim, particularly if we're getting closer to that end time. Well, that's kind of what's discussed in the book of Revelation. There's reason to believe that they would want to bring them back. A lot of theologians, even hundreds of years ago, said in the end times we would expect to see the reformation of the Nephilim. We would expect to see a thinning of the veil, as people see, where activity becomes more and more obvious, more and more rampant, more and more physical. We should expect to see these things, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Well, I mean, I understand that, and I can appreciate the love of what you're saying. But the humanity of these experiences is really unexplainable unless you've gone through it. Do you believe, then, that the humanity of the ET experience is being covered up and that there are people like the Greada Treaty who know what is truly going on?
I would argue that absolutely that's the case. I think that they know. Now, here's the question: do they know what it is that they signed the treaty with? Again, my problem isn't that these events are occurring. I think they are occurring. Absolutely. I think people are being abducted. I think they are being experimented on. I do think our government's covering up a lot of it as well. I think they do have a treaty. My only question is, what is doing the experimentation? right? And even, let's be honest, the last couple of seasons of Ancient Aliens, like, the argument isn't, are the angels and gods and demons of the Bible and of tradition the UFOs today? That's not even the question. It's assumed that they are. The real question is, where do they come from? Are they coming from Zeta Reticuli, or are they demons and angels? Did we just get it right the first time, and this is just a repaint, right? The problem is, it isn't what's happening. What's observable is that these things are happening. They are real. The question is, who are they that are actually doing it? Are they little green men that evolved on another planet or another plane of existence, and they're just showing up because they like butts? Or is there something else? Are they not what they claim to be? Again, dude walks up, says he's Napoleon. You've got two options. Little green man walks up and says, Nanu, Nanu, I'm from Zeta Reticuli. He's either lying or not. The problem is, I think they are lying. And I think the preponderance of evidence from what people actually see and observe makes sense that they are lying, that they aren't what they claim to be. I'm terrible with names, and I apologize for that. Stryber.
Whitley Strieber.
Whitley Strieber, thank you. Even in his book, he sort of admitted that that they were restraining his understanding who they really were. He sort of he very much makes that clear that they weren't really telling him everything. These are creatures that are lying to us, straight out. I think they're lying to us about what they are. There are aspects, though, again, like I said, they don't make sense if they are what they claim to be. And there's phenomena associated with them that shouldn't be there. Again, no one has ever been observing bonobo chimpanzees and talked about, ghosts and some of this other paranormal phenomena. But we get it when we research certain areas with Bigfoot. If these are creatures from another planet, we shouldn't have this paranormal phenomena, but we do. Maybe it's because it's all paranormal. And maybe, again, the problem is we don't even really understand what the word paranormal means. Someone says, well, they're creatures from a higher plane of existence or from another dimension. Great. Tell me how that's any different from an angel or demon. It's the same thing, just using different language. One language comes from Star Trek. The other one comes from, a culture that existed 2,000 years ago. Same thing is being described. So the question isn't necessarily, is this phenomena real? It clearly is. It's what's behind the phenomena.
We have 2 minutes to go before we got to go to break. At the top of the hour, Jason McLean is our guest. Can we stop it? A lot of people claim that using the words of Jesus Christ can stop it. Others have said that doesn't work. They just keep coming anyways. What's your thoughts? 2 minutes.
Okay, wow. So you make it easy for me. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's what I love to do around here.
Thank you. So here's the thing: there are people who claim to be Christian and that are abducted. The problem is when you look deeply into it, most of them are what would be called, Christmas Christians, right? They show up for the big deals. They're culturally Christian, is what they are. The big problem with a lot of this, though, is you do have to actually be in it. You have to be a Christian, and it's not just I show up on the Sunday. It isn't just that I show up and I give money on a certain day. It has to be that relationship. I can't find anyone who claims to be Christian who continues to be abducted, who actually has that kind of close relationship. Which again, for me, is indication that it's not just the use of a magic word, right? It's not just the use of, well, this guy told me to do this. Say two prayers and call me in the morning, right? It is a personal relationship with that being that we call God, Yahweh, Jehovah, from a particular perspective that really seems to make the difference. So again, it's not just use of magic words; it is a difference of relationship. Now, my question is, but why does it happen at all? Why do we have any? Like I said, if it was 1 or 2 or 10 accounts, we could write it all off. But the fact that we have hundreds of these accounts, for me, is indication of something else happening.
On that note, we're going to go to break here. at the top of the hour. When we come back, we haven't even talked Bigfoot yet.
Nope.
We need to talk some Sasquatch with our good friend Jason McLean. First time on the show. I can tell you right now, definitely will not be the last. Very impressive so far, Jason. We have Jason until the bottom of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. Then, the last half hour of the show, we're going to take your questions in the chat rooms for, let's see, how about the Magic 8 Ball? I got it right here. We're going to start warming it up the next half hour on Spaced Out Radio. All right, my friend, I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah, go for it. Take your time, man.
Okay. Do you want to talk to the audience? Because I'll turn your mic up.
Yeah. No, I'll talk to the audience.
All right, there you go.
It's just us again. So real quick, I saw some people had some questions earlier. I'm live every Monday on Texas Front Porch. It's part of the Trinity Paracryptid Network on YouTube. And I do have a Bible study every Thursday. It's called Not Another Bible Study. So I'm around. So have fun. But yeah, no, we're there. Any other questions? Yeah, Lockbeard has it. Yeah, Lockbeard shows up. We see him. Although he usually shows up as other people because YouTube doesn't like Lockbeard on our channel. They like him as other things. I don't know why YouTube does that, but it is. Oh, real quick. So yes. Yeah. Again, the channel that you're going to find me on is the Trinity Paracryptid Network. So again, it's I'm on Texas Front Porch. Bigfoot Michigan Rob is McKinney. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe I have to think about it. But again, it's the Trinity Paracryptid Network. I'm on Texas Front Porch. Bigfoot Michigan Rob is he has his own show on that channel as well. It's called Brunch with Bigfoot. Him and Tex. They like to talk about things. It's also super cool, and they both have luscious beards as well. We should probably call it the Luscious Beard Channel. Just saying. But right now we're stuck with Trinity Paracryptid. Saw a question there. Vinny Barbarino. Okay, so that's a great question. Yes, but not as most people think of it. Thank you, Bomber. So for me, in fact, we just got through going through Genesis 1 on my Bible study channel like 2 months ago. I would argue, and there's even a video on there. I'm going to do another one. I'm looking to create another channel, actually. Favorite cryptid for me, the Cadborosaurus. But I use Godzilla back here to prove the Earth is spherical, right? It is a sphere. It's in space. Star Trek has that right? Aaron, I don't know which question that was. Unfortunately, it's going really fast. But the firmament is, in my opinion, dimensional, right? I think we have a flat cosmology. There's a lot of physicists who would even argue that as well. That our existence is basically a flat plane, and that there are other dimensions on top and beneath. That seems to be, in my opinion, that's the biblical worldview. That's what it is. I think the firmament is that dimensional, is the brain, BRANE, that separates us, dimensionally speaking. So. Oh, for the so many questions. Back. Man, y'all have so many questions going. I'm missing like half of them.
Oh yeah, you will.
Yeah,
you will. I do. It's one of those things that happens, man.
I apologize because there are a lot of great questions in here, and they're popping up, right?
Well, we only have about a minute and a half, so you gotta rattle through them.
Right. Yeah. So, oh well. There's too many to. You know what? I'll have to come back.
Excuse me.
No problem. You got to keep breathing, man.
Yeah.
But there was a question: how could a contract be signed from if our souls are independent? We have to understand that reality is often under authorities, right? A lot of authority controls a lot of things, both in the physical and the spiritual world. Heads of state can speak for whole nations. Now, within that, though, there are people who can be protected, right? Again, because your allegiance is with another kingdom. Heaven is a heavenly kingdom. It is designed to protect. So the problem is if you're not aligned with that, then you aren't protected under it. You're basically, it's sort of like the Matrix. The Matrix had, I think, a great metaphor. If you became unplugged, you could go back into the Matrix, but you were separate from it. As long as you were still in the Matrix, then anyone could be an agent, right? They knew what you were thinking. They knew what was happening because you were still plugged in. Same concept.
Right.
That is some luscious hair you have there. What kind of conditioner do you use?
Oh, goodness. I forget what it is. You know what the key to growing hair is? Washing it only a couple times a week.
There you go.
And letting nature take its course.
Well, nature and my hair apparently don't like each other. So
I'm sorry about that.
God only made so many perfect heads. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, well, the rest of me's gone to hell. So hold on 1 second. We are on in like 10 seconds. Thank you, Aiden, and everyone else who donated, Vinster, and everyone else who donated to the Super Chat. Really appreciate that. Here we go, guys.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Let's kick off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, especially if you have a nice bearded mustache out there, because we love your crowd. Also, want to say hello to everyone tuning in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Let's see here. Naufragious. Naufragious is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we have author and researcher Jason McLean with us. You can find all of his books on Amazon. And we are going to go down the road of Sasquatch here. And in northern Texas, because Jason is from Texas, they have a lot of sightings around that northern area and the Four Corners in that area as well, just a little bit north. Jason, welcome back.
Glad to be back. By the way, the theme song, your introduction song,
yes,
is that Bumblefoot?
That is Bumblefoot.
It sort of has a Dropkick Murphy feel to it, like if Dropkick Murphy was doing rock and roll song too.
I love it, and you know it's funny because I wanted to use a different theme song of his, but I couldn't. Like he does a great rendition of the Pink Panther. And I wanted to use that, and I contacted him because I had met him before, and we had mutual friends. And I said, hey, I would love to use it. He goes, dude, I can't let you use it because I don't own the rights. Warner Brothers does. But, he goes, but let's come to an agreement, and I got this great new album out, and let's figure it out. And when I first heard Little Brother Is Watching, I was like, oh my goodness. It was like that song was written for us.
Well, it's a good one. I like it. It's a lot of fun.
Me too. Very talented. Very talented, Mr. Bumblefoot is.
I'm going to have to look him up. That's an interesting...
Yeah.
He's got an interesting song.
His power group called Sons of Apollo that he is a part of is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, that group. Sons of Apollo. Check them on out. All right, Bigfoot time. As we get into the Sasquatch and the legend, what is it? Are we looking at an interdimensional creature? Are we looking at a earthly creature that is left over from when we were Pangea? What do you think's going on?
Yes, actually, that would be the easy answer. I think the big issue when you look at Bigfoot is, no pun intended, is that what we have is multiple phenomena being put under the moniker Bigfoot, right? Let's just take a moment and say Bigfoot is Patty from Patterson-Gimlin, right? It's a bipedal primate, physical primate, nothing more bizarre than that. Again, does that make it human? Does it make it not human? We're not even addressing it. Bipedal primate, physical creature. It eats, it poops, it procreates, it does all the good things, primates are supposed to do. There are other encounters that people are having with beings that are telepathic. They move through walls. We have these things. The problem is those are also being called Bigfoot. I think the problem is both phenomena are real. They're just being put into the same way. Again, I go back to the issue of the name Goatman sort of becoming popularized and becoming the pop culture reference, right? In the 60s with the Lake Worth monster. The Lake Worth monster was a Bigfoot. It's a Sasquatch. That's what it appears to be by all accounts. But the name Goatman gets associated with all these other things. In the same way, I think what happened is a lot of researchers very early on, because they didn't have enough information necessarily, what they see is it was a dark form. They saw eye shine. Must be a Bigfoot, right? That's got to be what it is. That's what Bigfoots are. They're big and they're dark, and they have eye shine. Boom, it must be that. I can't go into too much detail, unfortunately, until a future date. Sorry. That is an event that's happened that's really solidified for me. I think almost any time, if all we have is dark figure and glowing eyes, we don't have a Bigfoot. I think by and large, those are purely paranormal creatures. They are interdimensional, if you want to use the term, right? We want to go more Star Trek than esoteric. It is. So I think the real problem here is that we're putting these things in the same box. We're trying to find sightings of Bigfoot. Well, the problem is, what if our data is bringing in other phenomena that has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but we see big and it looks scary? Must be a Bigfoot. That doesn't mean that it has to be. There is clearly paranormal material or activity out there that is materializing as a large creature, but it's definitely not a primate. It is something else. It is something supernatural. That being said, there's also a ton of people who have seen in broad daylight what is clearly a physical creature that's just trying to live its life. So Texas, unfortunately, has a bit of both, and it's becoming more, and I'm having, the more I look into it, it's becoming harder and harder to really separate them out. Like, where does one stop and the other begin? And it's for me, what we're trying to do is find out what do we need, what do our parameters need to be for knowing that one was that what we have is a purely paranormal encounter and one is the physical ape Bigfoot, right? And let me throw one more little monkey wrench into this whole question. If Bigfoot is Patty, the Patterson-Gimlin creature, right? That's the bipedal primate. Who is to say that the physical creatures that are seen in Texas and the skunk apes that are seen in Florida and all in between while it would be reasonable to say they're all the same species, just maybe local variants, that sounds reasonable. We don't know that for a fact. It's entirely possible that the Patterson-Gimlin critter, and what we're seeing down here, this like the Sabine thing, are two different things. We don't know that they are actually the same thing. We don't know that the skunk apes are the same thing that's being seen in Texas. So what we have is evidence for what, I mean, we've got footprints, we have them eating things, stealing kills from people. One of my favorite photos that popped up on the internet more recently was of a kid who had recently shot a buck, right? He's sitting there, his dad's in the picture, and if you look back at the back of the photo, like 20, 30 yards away, maybe 50 yards away, there's a tree, and crouching next to it with its hand on the other side of the tree is this dark figure. And it's like it had shown up trying to get the kill, but it's watching them, trying to see if it can go and steal it. Because we've had encounters like that. Well, that's a physical creature. That's just trying to eat, right? It's trying to make its caloric needs for the day. That's not the paranormal stuff that we're seeing. So I do believe there's a physical aspect of it. But it's clear that the broader question is we need to find a way to separate what's physical Bigfoot, what's paranormal and not actually Bigfoot, and then also, is Bigfoot one thing? Is it multiple creatures as far as species go? Are some of them, or what if some of what we call Bigfoot are actually humans that just decided they didn't want anything to do with us, right? The rest of humanity. Like there's a large primate, maybe it's Gigantopithecus, maybe not. But what if some of them are just humans that were like, you know what? Humanity sucks. We want to stay away from you. We want to live off the land. We want to live the way people did 5,000 years ago. And they're just trying to stay away from us. And people who are, we call them feral humans, whatever you want to call them, they're just, what if they're a part of this whole mixture, right? We got to find a way to really separate these things out, because I've got what is clearly a giant ape being seen in broad daylight just outside of Dallas, Texas. But at the same time, in a similar location, I'm getting a lot of paranormal activity. So the problem is, how often are we mistaking paranormal for the physical? And vice versa. How often is the physical being mistaken for something paranormal? We got to find a way to sort of break that out.
Very interesting indeed. So, given that this creature has so many traits to it that would condition itself, or anybody thinking about it, that it is of earthly descent and not something supernatural, would this mean that we have different species of it? So, for instance, the species here in British Columbia would be much different than what you're seeing in Texas or what they're seeing in the swamps of Florida.
No, I would think that would be the case. I think that's absolutely the case. When we see the creatures up in the Pacific Northwest and in Canada, they seem to be much, much larger. They're more robust, right? Patty had a lot of fat on her, right? She was thick, as the kids would say these days. But you come down to Texas, they seem to be much smaller. They seem to be much more lean, right? The fur or the hair seems to be much thinner than what you would expect for the Pacific Northwest. But that makes sense, right? It's the difference between a snow rabbit and a jackrabbit. Same, they're both rabbits, but one's designed for the desert, one's designed for a much colder climate. Same thing with the skunk apes all the way out. They seem to just be a little different, which is what you would expect with creatures that are trying to adapt to their environment. And let's face it, there are bipedal ape stories all over the world. And some in the tropical areas seem to be smaller and thinner. Some seem to be more pongid. Some seem to be more human, right? That's another big sort of monkey wrench in this whole thing is sometimes they're described as being very, very ape-like. Other times they sound very caveman-like, which goes back to that question of, are we really looking at the same creature, or are we just looking at minor adaptations and one just happens to look more human, or are we looking at two completely different things? So We don't know yet. Unfortunately, until we get one and we can run tests on it and ask it what it wants for lunch, like, we're just not going to have these answers, unfortunately. But we have to be open to the possibilities.
Do you think it's just really good at camouflage, or do you think it has the ability to actually cloak itself?
I think there are two aspects to that. One, I think we are not as observant as we like to think we are. Two, we often don't realize how easy it is to hide from us, right? And thirdly, I think these are creatures that are with an exceptionally low population density that is survived by staying away from us, which means they're very good at it. And that seems to be what we see with them, right? In fact, one of the questions that everyone asks is, well, how do you know you saw a Bigfoot, not a bear? Or how often is Bigfoot or is a bear mistaken for a Bigfoot? Well, I'd ask the other question. Well, how often is Bigfoot mistaken for a bear? What if we do see these creatures way more often, but they are often quadrupedal? And so people just see them and think, okay, it was big, hairy, on all fours, must be a bear, right? Or even if it wasn't quadrupedal, well, it's big and hairy, must be a bear. How often are they being written off? So maybe we are seeing them way more often, but what they're good at doing is not being seen, because that's how they survive. That's how they stay away. They're like, we're just going to stay away from them altogether. So just several stories in my book. I could have pulled a bunch of stories from. This won't mean too much to too many people, but basically, if you're going out of Dallas towards East Texas, which is where most sightings are done, right? They're seen in East Texas and South Texas. You get on that side of the Trinity, it's basically wilderness out there anyway. Most people don't realize that, but it's basically just wooded area all the way out. There's plenty of stories that come from there. The stories I wanted to talk about was coming from Fort Worth to and around Dallas, where you're basically in some of the most populated areas in Dallas, and yet they still show up there, and they're able to sort of move through. But I think the way they stay undiscovered is they just don't stay in the same spot, right? They are moving. They're migratory. Again, look at the gorilla. They have this large territory that they move, that their whole troop moves around in, right? They're just going around. Well, if you're never in the same place twice, it's very hard to get found. That's why gorillas, for years, people thought they didn't think they were even real. The billy ape, right, which was just recently discovered in Africa. It was a larger chimpanzee. It's just a chimpanzee, nothing strange about that. But we didn't have good evidence of their existence until the last 10 years because they just stayed away from humans. Staying away from humans is remarkably easy to do when we're on these stupid phones all day, right? We live on these little concrete islands with concrete bridges to another concrete island. And one of the things I describe in my book is what I call the green wall. I don't know about Canada, but here in North Texas, we have roads. We shape the ground around them.
Just for clarification, we have roads in Canada too.
Really?
No,
you have roads in.
It's true.
Not just you aren't all riding moose.
I can't comment on that, but I can comment that we do have roads here.
All right, fair enough. But so when we build our roads, we build them with an arc so the rain washes off, and then we try to make certain that the ground on the side is goes down. We keep that mode. Well, what does that mean? All the water backs up to this one spot, and so where the tree line is where the tall grasses grow, right? So what do you have? Even if on just 3 or 4 feet in, it's a very navigable green space. You have a wall of greenery, shrubbery, and tall grasses that are completely blocking your ability to see into that tree line. That's all over Texas. All of our trees are basically, the tall ones, the dense ones. It's all around areas where we have the creeks and where the floodplains are. So again, what that means is we've created this green wall that prevents us from actually seeing into the green spaces where these creatures are. You could march elephants down most of the creeks in North Texas, no one would ever know. They'd never see it unless they happen to be crossing over a bridge while you were there. You'd never know any of these things were occurring, right? So I think one of the things a lot of these creatures are able to use to hide from us is this green wall. The fact that we sort of stick to our turf, they stick to theirs. It makes it much easier for them to hide. And a great example, let's talk about the hogs. You mentioned the feral pigs. The city of Irving is basically nothing more than a continued sprawling, the concrete sprawl of downtown Dallas, right? There are absolutely at least 1,000 feral hogs living in the city of Irving. No one ever sees them. These things they cause thousands of dollars of damage to yards and green spaces every year. And right now, the 1,000, that's the best estimate they have. Some think it could be even higher than that. We don't really know. But they're there. But no one ever sees them. We just see the evidence of them being there. So if pigs, which again, they're not they're not stupid, but they're not the brightest, bulbs in the drawer. If you can have 1,000 hogs, 1,000 hungry feral hogs hiding in a city like Irving, it's as industrialized and concrete, jungle-esque as you can find. If they can hide there, then a highly intelligent primate that doesn't want to be seen by us and is going to have an easy time of being able to navigate and move up and down our creeks and navigate our green spaces without being seen. And when they are seen, we usually just write them off as something else. That's all we have to do. And humans are really, really good at doing that. We have evidence in front of our face of something that's real, and we're like, nope, I'm just going to write that off. I mean, how often do we see it? Forget the paranormal, just every day. How often do humans just write off the things that we find that make us uncomfortable, right? There's the thing that we know that is happening. It's happening right in front of us. We're like, nope, I don't want to deal with it. It must be something else. I think Bigfoot falls into that category.
We have 3 minutes to go before we got to go to a break here at the bottom of the hour and say goodnight to you, Jason. Just quickly on Bigfoot here before we say goodnight. Do you believe that we need a body in order to prove the existence?
The optimist in me would say no. The pessimist in me says it may not even matter if we had the body or not. There would be someone would walk up and find some way to dismiss it somehow, or hide it. I would like to think that with a good combination of now this is going to be the trick. We would have to have good video evidence. There would have to be DNA associated, right, with it, and the trackway. So we'd have to have that perfect combination where maybe a researcher's going to have a great camera, and they're going to have to step on something that leaves blood that allows us to extract that DNA. Again, the optimist in me says it's possible. The pessimist says we could have a body, bring it out, and someone from the government would say it's been hoaxed, it's just a fake, and then they take it off somewhere, right? I'm hopeful that maybe it's going to be somewhere in the middle. Maybe we'll be lucky, unfortunately, for one day for one creature to step in front of a truck, right? Maybe that'll happen, and it's a busy intersection, or maybe it dies of natural causes, but it dies somewhere where everyone can see it, and the body can be claimed. If that's I would like for that to be the case. Again, it's had a nice long life. It just has had too many Taco Bell leftovers and just dies of a heart attack. But it does so in public. Like, that would be the best of all possible worlds. But even then, again, the pessimist in me says it does appear as if the government has an interest in not letting these creatures be discovered. So I don't know that there wouldn't be a way of as Ivan T. Sanderson calling it, the wipe, right? Where there's the articles talking about the event that occurs, and then there's the articles that allow you to wipe it away from your memory. I just don't know that something like that couldn't occur and somebody come in and just sort of find a way to wipe it away. But maybe we're coming to a point where this show right here, our ability to communicate to record things and get them up as fast as possible, maybe that will prevent that from occurring. So again,
that is something we're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. Like I said, I wish I could sit here and say we don't need a body. I just don't know that we don't need one. I'd like to think we could do it without needing to kill one. But probably in all actualities, we will need a body. So maybe science will get lucky one day.
My friend, I want to say thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Absolute pleasure having you, Jason McLean. You hold on while
Appreciate you.
When I say we really appreciate it. We're going to do that again. Very intelligent conversation. Coming up next, something not so intelligent. Your questions in the chat room from our Magic 8 Ball and the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Good job, bud. That was incredible.
Appreciate it.
Very much incredible.
Had a great time. Great show.
Yeah.
Great hair. And great hair.
Thank you, sir. Next time I'll do it up for you. Oh, where'd you go? You put your mic on mute. Oh, your mic disconnected. It's saying your mic is disconnected. Oh, there you go.
There we are. Yeah, I think it just freaked out there for a second. Anyway, no, I appreciate coming on. I appreciate your show. Like I said, this was a lot of fun. Love to do it again.
Absolutely. We definitely will. Definitely will. You have a good night. Take care.
You too.
And we'll see you very, very soon, okay?
You too. You have a good one.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. What a smart dude. Very smart dude. Intelligent. Fantastic. Great show. Great show. Oh my God, my hair looks terrible. All right, back to this. There we go. Remember, we are on terrestrial radio. No bad questions that can't go on the radio. And we will be, in a little bit here, start to take your questions. Hi, Terrible Times. Yes, the new split screen is the new format. Hey, Dirt Road, thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Way too kind, Duke. Way too kind. Thank you, Super Quest. The gorgeous Tristan, obviously, is she sweating or getting tired there? I'm not sure. Not sure. Thanks, Vinster. Vin, you got to get over that anger for Science Bob, man. He's good people. Good people. Susan Place, Mama Susan. There she is, throwing in her 2 cents. No, Bomber, I do not braid my armpit hair. All right. You got about a minute and a half here before you start taking your questions. And, yeah. Oh, good. Remember to put your questions in capital letters so that way I can read them properly. Richard Elmore fell asleep. Good evening, Richard Elmore. Good evening. All right, I want to say a big thank you to Brett Lewis, Murray, Ben, Rob, Cat Chaser, Laura, Rob again, Catfish times 2, actually times 3, Christoph, Vinster, Aiden, and Dirt Road for the amazing super chats tonight. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. And much love to each and every one of you. Remember, if you're asking questions to the Magic 8 Ball, you need to put them in capital letters, okay? And they have to be yes-no questions. Otherwise, Magic 8 Ball gets cranky, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So let's make sure that you get them all in capital letters, and we go from there. So here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. And I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. It's that time of the night again. Magic 8 Ball Night. Get your questions ready now. All right, we are warmed up here. We are warmed up for the big Magic 8 Ball. And we're going to start off with a question that comes from the lovely and talented Tristan, who is asking, and I'm going to try and get you the answer. I don't know if we're going to be able to because of my camera angle, especially if you're watching it on YouTube or Twitch or Periscope, but we're going to try. And Tristan's question to the Magic 8 Ball, as we're all warmed up here, is, do you think, Magic 8 Ball, Bigfoot is an original human which escaped DNA manipulation in Atlantis times? Ooh, we're getting deep right off the bat. Magic 8 Ball, what do you think about this one? And the answer is signs pointing to yes. So to this question here, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. No, we're not going to be able to see that on camera. It's going to flip on us. But yes, signs pointing to yes, Tristan. So yes, Bigfoot comes from Atlantis, swam across to Pangaea, hooked onto a rock, and that's where it stayed until they split up and made continents. That simple. All right. No, by the way, Tristan, I do not play guitar. I know one chord. One chord. 8 guitars in my house, and I know one chord. I know, breaks my heart, but nonetheless, that's just the way it is. Okay, next question comes from Brett Lewis. Brett Lewis is asking, does Sasquatch give a damn about his hair? Oh, that's a deep question. Deep question right there from Brett. Let's go into the forests, find out. Does Sasquatch, Magic 8 Ball, give a damn about his hair? Yes and beyond. Oh, yes and beyond. The Magic 8 Ball is on fire tonight. So let us continue on here as we continue to grow the big question on the Magic 8 Ball here on Spaced Out Radio. We do it once a week, unless we're on with the shift with Shane going right across Canada. Next question comes from Chris Mo in Austria. Has a human ever left the solar system by whatever means? Magic 8 Ball takes a look here, and the answer is infinitely yes. That's because of aliens and the secret space program. We have left the universe, and we have flown into the unknown, where only God knows what is on the other side. Let's see here. Next question. From Aussie, all the way in Australia. And let's do this here. Am I going to be, this is Aussie, am I going to meet the deadline I'm currently working on? The answer from Magic 8 Ball, it's not looking good. Not today, Sheriff. Not today. Let's see if we can get that one in there. How do we angle that properly? Nope, not going to work. Not today. Sorry, Ozzy. You're going to miss that deadline. You better ask for an extension. Lynn Sows, welcome back to the show, Lynn. She is asking, is Dave going to reach 15,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel by his birthday, May 24th? Magic 8 Ball, what do you say? Levels are positive. Levels are positive. We're 3,700 away. 3,700 away. You never know. We may make it. We may. I don't know if we will or not. But we're going to darn well try. All right, next question comes from Bombshell Bomber. Will Uncle Duke from World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, get some Sasquatch footage this season? The answer is reply hazy, try again. See, with the big critter there, Bomber, and I agree with this answer, you can't predict when you're going to have action. Now, do I think Duke will? Yes, I do. Because he's, he'll run up to a Bigfoot and he'll give it a kiss. He would. He's that type of guy. Right? But, nope. Nope. All right, moving on. Vinny wants to know, is Elvis alive? The answer is all clear. There's a good chance. I would take that as a positive. Somewhere out there, Elvis is hanging out. He'd be what, 80? Would he be about 80 now? 85? Chris Mo is asking, will Vinster in the chat room and Science Bob smoke some hippie lettuce together at the SOR Vegas party? Not that we condone that, even though it's legal up here in Canada. But in America, for most places, it's still not legal. But will they sneak away and have a doobie? Let's find out the answer. And the Magic 8 Ball says, all clear, so there's a good chance that Science Bob and Vinster are going to patch their souls together over the devil's salad. Yes, they will. The devil's salad's going to come and haunt them. Tristan wants to know, oh, she's on fire tonight, that Tristan. On fire. Does Sasquatch drink beer? If it's from Canada, it is. Reply hazy, try again. The Magic 8 Ball apparently doesn't want sassy questions like that. So we're going to have to check it on out here. Find another one. Come on, Magic 8 Ball. Remember, though, there is a time limit on the Magic 8 Ball. Only allows us so much time before it decides that it is checking on out. Chad Smith is asking, are angel numbers related to UFOs and aliens? Oh, let's find that out. That's a good question there. Infinitely yes. You know why I agree with that? Somehow, somewhere, this is all tied together. All of this woo that we talk about on a nightly basis is all tied together. Problem is, we don't know how, and we don't have enough people investigating how it all works. Cherie wants to know, will Dave learn how to play guitar in 2021? The answer is, doesn't want to give me an answer. All signs a go. Maybe when things slow down, I could be learning guitar. Eric with a K wants to know, is Dave Scott Spaced Out Radio my fourth favorite show? Is it number 4? Let's find out from Eric here. Not today, Sheriff. Not today. Oh, my goodness. All right. Maybe we're up to number 3, or maybe we dropped to number 5. I don't know. Fast Hemi wants to know, does Vinny in the chat room have a wooden leg? All clear, which means yes, he does. But I think the Magic 8 Ball, feeling the energy on it, it is definitely having a sense of humor tonight. All right, let's move on here. Tristan with another one. Oh, she's on fire. Is astrology the blueprint to get out of this matrix? Now, personally, I'm going to say no, but we'll see what the Magic 8 Ball says. In hypersleep. Oh, it's starting to die on us. Hold on. We needed a couple more questions here, Magic 8 Ball. You could do it. Has about a 15 minute time limit. And the answer is all clear, which means it could be. Sure, why not? Duke from World Bigfoot Radio wants to know, will Dave have Sasquatch activity at his research area this year? Oh, I hope so. Ask again later, Duke. Ask again later. We're going to have to slowly start to wind this down because the Magic 8 Ball's energy is running out. Let's go to, let's see here. Chad, is Michigan going to be visited by UFOs in the near future? Magic 8 Ball says, all systems go. Thank you to everybody participating in the Magic 8 Ball tonight. Let's get to the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR News Wire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes, what do we got here? Oh, something cool. I actually like this. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans here in Canada has imposed localized fishery closures after observers in a plane spotted a Cabot Strait whale. The first North Atlantic right whale of the season has been sighted in Canadian waters, triggering an early and localized snow crab fishery closure in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Observers flying in a plane spotted the whale Sunday afternoon northeast of the Magdalen Islands in the Cabot Strait. I would say they are essentially here on time, perhaps a little early, Sean Brilliant of the Canadian Wildlife Foundation said. Right whales are critically endangered. The sighting came 3 days ahead of the April 28 start date for measures to protect them, including automatic fishery closures ordered by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and shipping lane restrictions implemented by Transport Canada in the Gulf. I expect that there will be some consideration for adaptive management at this point, Brilliant said. But you know what? Let's see where it goes. DFO said it has responded. The sighting has triggered a 15-day fishing closure in crab fishing Area 12F. The department said in a statement, fishing Area 12F is east of the Magdalen Islands. Ship strikes and entanglements in fishing gear are two of the leading causes of death in right whales. Since 2017, 20 of the whales have died in this Gulf of St. Lawrence. In recent years, Ottawa has closed fisheries when right whales are spotted in an area and imposed ship speed limits in the Gulf during the months when they are present. This year, when a right whale is sighted An area around it is closed for fishing for 15 days. If a second sighting occurs during 9 to 15 days, that area will be closed until November. This is a fairly severe and drastic closure in an attempt to make sure that we are doing the best we can to keep fishing gear away from the whales. Right whales migrate each spring from the waters off the southeastern United States to Canadian waters, including the Bay of Fundy and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. The lucrative snow crab fishery is fully underway in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. In recent years, the season has opened early in an effort to catch more of the quota before the whales arrive. No right whales died in Canadian waters in 2018 and 2020. Let's hope it happens again. Police in Germany say a bomb squad was summoned on a report of a grenade spotted by a jogger in the woods. But when they arrived, well, it wasn't a grenade, but a rubber sex toy. The police in Lower Bavaria said the bomb squad was called to a wooded area outside of the city of Preso, near the Austrian border. Well, it wasn't a hand grenade in that plastic bag they found. Yeah, they checked it on out, discovered the grenade-shaped object was made of rubber and was accompanied by 2 condoms, an empty bottle of personal lubricant, and a USB charging cord. I want to know what the USB charging cord is for. Police said the bomb squad did an online search and confirmed the suspected explosive was a harmless sex toy. Here's an interesting one. Florida man is at it again, allegedly trying to smuggle drugs into jail using his prosthetic leg. 37-year-old Keith Adams is accused of using the artificial limb to try and sneak in a gram of fentanyl and some Xanax pills into the Pinellas County Jail. Adams was taken to the lockup after an arrest for allegedly possessing cocaine and resisting arrest earlier in the night near Largo. Before being transported, police asked him if he was carrying any concealed stuff within his prosthetic leg, but he said no. The drugs Adams allegedly hid landed him 2 additional charges, according to the report. A woman who was gifted a balloon with 100 pounds in cash, not 100 pounds, the British 100 pounds, well, it was tied to a balloon. Balloon said, yeah, happy birthday. And then, well, somehow Nikki Walker ended up going up viral because she lost the expensive present. How did it happen? Well, during a barbecue with close family, when her mom Carol handed her the box containing a balloon with a stream of tenors stuck to it. And, well, you can guess what happened. She accidentally let go of the rope, and the 100 pounds in 10-pound notes, each attached to the balloon, went flying off in the wind. She's now down 100. I wonder if Mom replaced it. I don't know. Here's a weird one. Exactly 400 years ago, a violent storm proved deadly to a woman who did not even witness it. This was because she was a witch. And now they're saying sorry in Norway for wrongly convicting this young lady, Ellis Nutsdatter, because she was arrested for witchery, having been seen with devils in the shapes of black cats and dogs, but she was put to death because back then didn't want any witchery going on. And finally, you remember that meme with that little young girl evilly staring at the camera while their house burns? Well, that was 4-year-old Zoe Roth, who is now known on the internet as Disaster Girl. That young lady is now 21 years old, and she has taken advantage of these new NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. She sold that picture and that meme. It was expected to sell at the auction site for $25,000, ended up catching literally 180 Ether, or $486,000 plus, all for an electronic meme. What are we doing wrong, people? What are we doing wrong? Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. Is there a religious tie between God and aliens? Joey, what is the old quote that technology advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic? It would seem that such extreme levels of that could be considered godlike, and after a long period of time, one would believe any being possession, such thing would be a god. Rob, obviously, after all, they are the ones who taught us religion in the first place, God's angels. Eric with a K, we are his fourth favorite show. We're number 4 for Eric. Good question, Dave. When the aliens arrive later this year, will they be required to get a vaccine passport? Maybe. Who knows? Duster, at least if you follow the Christian doctrine, God created the whole reality, so that would connect him with aliens. In this line of thinking, aliens are God's creation, his children, as are we too. Moo, I hope not. Richard, when you use your third eye to interact with aliens, they sometimes look glimmery and glitzy. They can be easily mistaken for having wings. Captain, perhaps one day humans will be someone else's gods and aliens. Barry, yes, we have perceived the same thing differently throughout the times. Dystopia, is such a thing even possible? I don't even know. I don't know. All right, moving on. Gary Spikes believes they are. No to Chris Desmarais. He says, while I do believe that God created the universe in which we reside, and all life within this may be our God's limitations within this realm, I tend to believe in multiverse theory and surmise that occupants true UAV have developed a way to manipulate the molecular vibration in their universe and cross into others. Bobby, I would say we are all one, therefore God shines within us all. Catherine, only if you want there to be one. Magnus, I think God is an alien. Mike, Jesus clearly stated that his kingdom is not from earth. Major Lee, I do feel our ability is limited by our words, our ability to vocalize a possible spiritual alliance. We really don't have enough understanding the term of spirituality. It's all terminology we use to try to hypothesize the unknown. Rogelio, maybe you never know, so got to keep an open mind. Lee, I do believe it is possible the God sometimes uses ETs to get us back on track. I would call it tough love. This is what I have come to believe through my experiences. Danny gets the final word. They could be one and the same. Thank you to everybody coming on in and talking about ETs, Bigfoot, and God on the Thought of the Day on Facebook and Twitter. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Yes, we will, because we'll be here tomorrow, unless something bad happens, and that would really, really suck. But we will do our best to be here. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the Thought of the Day, and the news, and thank you to everybody playing along with the Magic 8 Ball. And, of course, our guest tonight, we really thank Jason McLean for coming on in. Grab his books on Amazon. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter with Derek and the Snarkettes. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.